We're talking.
We talking?
We're talking. Okay, let's do this, guys. We're talking Game Awards. We are here with Jazzy, with Sana, and me. So if this is your first time on YouTube, if you're watching us, then our names are here. It's awkward. But no, we are also live, so we will be potentially seeing what people are talking about in chat as well. But we're here to talk all things Game Awards 2025. Just because, you know, Game Awards is a good time. But how was everyone's day? Jazzy, Sana.
It's pretty good.
Not too bad.
We're gonna be.
Santa and I got our butts kicked in Night Rain earlier, so it's all good, you know?
Yeah.
I've
we did
heard-
our best. It just didn't go well.
I've heard it's very hard. I've heard. Well, it's you guys that have had one clear so far, right?
We did the
Yeah, we
first
do one of
boss,
them.
yes.
How many bosses are there?
There's a second boss. There's 2 new ones, and we have beaten the first one, but not the second one yet.
Gamers, though, you'll get there. Well, yeah, we'll actually be discussing Night Rain a little bit in a bit because there's an award, but also, I kind of forgot that it was announced last year at the Game Awards. It wasn't like it was shown somewhere beforehand. It was announced, which means once we get talking about announcements for what we can expect to see this year, then there's some big stuff to talk about. We will be going backwards in order of what's on the Game Awards website. So if anyone's like, why are you not talking about Game of the Year first? We want to save for the best one to last. So what we're actually going to start with is right now, and I say right now because it is the final evening to do so. If you haven't voted over at the Game Awards yet, there is currently a player vote. Started the other day as 30 games, whittled down to 10, and we'll whittle down to, I believe, 5. Not from today, but from like Monday, I think. But literally until, I think, for the next 3 hours or so, you can still vote for which 5 you want to see. The reason we're starting there is because it's a bit interesting, because there was a bit of a furore around certain games not getting nominated for Game of the Year, or just more in general. However, with the player vote, we can see that certain games, I specifically, really, Arc Raiders, did not get the support that seemingly a lot of the internet was like, Arc Raiders is Game of the Year, Arc Raiders is Game of the Year. The current ones we have are Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Dispatch, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Genshin Impact, which is, we'll discuss that in a second, Ghost of Yote, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and Wuthering Waves. So all 6 games that are currently up for Game of the Year are still there. Guys, do you think we're going to see something that isn't one of the 6 winning? Because there is a strong chance that some stuff, that I'm surprised Donkey Kong got there, honestly, of the 10.
I would say
Sorry, go
Donkey
ahead.
Kong's probably the weakest out of all of those, surprisingly enough.
Interesting. I haven't played it myself yet. I think of the ones I saw listed, I've played what, 1, 2, 3. I played 4 of them. So like even when I voted, I was like, I have the 4 I'll vote for plus 1 other. But have you guys only played Clair Obscur from that 10? Oh no, you both played Hades as well,
no,
right?
Yeah, and I played through Dispatch as well.
Oh, you finished it. How did you like it?
I did. Oh my god, it's so good. It's very, very worth being on this list. Like, it deserves it for sure.
Is that a game that you're probably thinking about potentially
And-
picking up, Jazzy?
So the problem with Dispatch is I've seen people play through
Uh.
Dispatch, and I feel like it's one of those games, the best impact. Like, I haven't seen the last like 2 episodes. I don't think I watched anybody do that. But once you've seen certain story beats, it gets a little, you kind of spoiled it for yourself, you know, because that's what's great about that game is the storytelling, and not knowing what's going to happen next is like, I actually voted for that for player voice because what I had seen of it, I think it's a great game. So I think it deserves to have some recognition. So
I think for me personally, I mean, Clair Obscur will probably win it, or Genshin Impact will win it because they get free stuff if they vote for it to win, which, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, should it really be nominated? Because it's technically an ongoing game, it's not new, so, you know, there's the whole discourse around that. It'll probably be in the top 5. I think for me personally, I'd like to see Dispatch win it just because Dispatch is one of those like underdog style games where all these other games are probably going to pick up something. Maybe not Donkey Kong because it's only up for a couple of awards, which also to me was surprising. But no, if Dispatch was to win like the public vote one, I think that'd be incredible. It's like, it was such a strong return to form for Telltale style games. And yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those things like you were talking about, Jazzy, where it's kind of what the downfall of Telltale was, in the sense of everyone kind of started watching, you know, like PewDiePie or Jacksepticeye just like start playing through the game and so not buying it themselves. But, you know, at least with Dispatch, we've seen I think it's now sold over 2 million copies. So like seeing it kind of have its moment and potentially see even more is just, I love that game. So I really want to see kind of more of it. But yeah, have you got anything else to say about any of these things for Player Boys? Any upsets from? Well, I should have really got the list of everything else, but then we've been reading out 30 games. I remember on the other one. Oh, go on.
I do remember from the first 30. It is funny that you mentioned Arc Raiders. I do remember it seeing in the first 30 whenever I voted, and so it is interesting that all the hoopla of people really trying to push Arc Raiders. They didn't even get it to the second round of this.
No, I saw it, and that was
really
my
interesting.
immediate thought. I was like,
So you're saying that the people who were being loud about it weren't actually doing what the vast majority wanted. Interesting.
no,
Exactly.
vocal minority, never. Not in the games
Never.
industry.
In the games, no.
But no, Repo was on there, which
I
is
do
one I would have potentially liked to have seen because it's not nominated for anything else. But you know,
Yeah. I was mentioning I did want Repo to at least get a little bit more in here, but it made the 30. That's fine for me, I guess.
yeah, it's nice that they had like a little tip of the hat to it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Also, for anyone watching, we will be probably discussing and deep diving on, and like, we're going to talk about everything except from esports and content creator of the year, just because that's not necessarily our kind of bag. So it would be like, that one sounds cool. Next, with each of these, I'm sure there'll be somewhere where like we kind of all agree pretty quickly. We can discuss it briefly, but then there might be somewhere we full on like spend a lot more time with it, just so that we aren't taking up too much of your time. Like I said, we will start going backwards though, so we will start with most anticipated game, which is actually kind of weird with like, what's ahead? The nominated games in most anticipated game are 007 First Light, GTA 6, not 5, Wolverine, Marvel's Wolverine, Resident Evil Requiem, and The Witcher 4. Have you guys got your choices for this?
I do, but it was actually a hard one.
Really?
Yes, because I picked Witcher 4 because that is for sure, like, out of all these, that is my number one. I want that so bad. But I had a really hard time picking that over 007 because of how much I love the Hitman series.
Yes.
And it's the fact that it's going to be made in kind of that style really intrigues me. I want to see Bond in 47's like style a little bit, and that's kind of what we're getting.
Jazzu, you were a Witcher person as well, correct?
Yeah, I actually also ended up voting for The Witcher. Though I had a moment where I was like, the new Wolverine game looks pretty cool, but
It does.
I have also been waiting for The Witcher for a very, very, very long time. So as soon as like I remember when the release trailer came out, like it was desk flipping excitement. So I was like, this has to have my vote.
For me personally, it's here I come to say I don't particularly care for The Witcher. I don't know what it is. I think
who invited this guy?
I think
Who's this guy?
for me personally, I am not a massive fan of open worlds. Witcher was one of the three, at least, was one of those games that took me a while to kind of jump into. So I mean, I'm happy for all the people that are like huge Witcher fans. I know so many people are. But for me, I'm just a simple man. It has to be Resident Evil for me. Resident Evil is like one of my favorite franchises. The new one looks incredible. I think of all these, the thing's out first. I think it is out just before Bond. The other three haven't got solid. No, that's a lie. GTA 6 does have a release date. But,
No, go back. It doesn't have a slot. we trust nothing.
They have one and then they go back on it, and then they have one and then they go back on
Again.
it. We don't know we don't know it anymore.
Yeah, we know it's next November at this point, but it was also set for May, so it could move again. Also, so to put it out there, GTA 6 probably gonna win. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, probably will, but I don't want it to.
I feel like it's very likely that it'll win, but I really don't want it to either. I feel like it's had its time. We got to anticipate it and then anticipate it some more and then anticipate it some more. So I'm done anticipating that game.
It's one of those things, yeah, I think it would literally, I could be wrong about 2023, but it definitely won last year. So it won last year's most anticipated game, probably win again. It's like, hey, why don't we just keep delaying it so we can keep potentially getting anticipation awards?
I do think that's a little cheeky. Like if you have, and like delaying a game is inevitable, like that's fine. Do that, especially if it means the game is going to be better. But don't let it keep getting nominated for most anticipated game just because it keeps getting pushed back a year, another year, another year. Like let it retire into hopefully coming out soon instead of most anticipated.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I think of these lists, I mean, I could be wrong. I think Witcher hasn't got a window. I could be wrong because I thought at first it was all games have to have at least a 2026 window. But I could be wrong. I think it's one of those weird things where, yeah, for anyone that isn't aware, the Game Awards outside of the player vote is 90% voted by a jury of like journalists. So a lot of this, you might be like, well, this was the fan favorite. Like, we'll get to it in a little bit, but like peak for multiplayer. Maybe it does win, but I think because it's like the critical kind of jury journalism look at it, I think it probably won't. But I think, the industry's so excited for GTA. I think, unfortunately, it would be that. I think Wolverine has a chance because I know, Insomniac's so like kind of seen highly in this industry as well. But no, I think actually, I say that literally Witcher's right there. Sorry. But yeah, I think as I'm also someone who's massively looking forward. Like, I think my order would be like Requiem, and then actually also 007, then Wolverine, GTA, then Witcher for me personally. I think the what's it called? I am massively looking forward to 007. I'm also a huge Hitman fan. I'm excited. Should we move on to the next one? I'm excited. Best adaptation. I haven't really got much of an input on this one, but here the nominations are a Minecraft movie, Devil May Cry, Splinter Cell, Death Watch, The Last of Us 2, and Until Dawn. You guys did you guys see any of this?
I didn't watch any of these.
Not. Mm-mm.
I saw Last of Us about it.
I feel like Last of Us is probably still going to win, even though I know that I don't know if a lot of people were very happy with season 2, but I also think the expectation was very high. So I think I feel like I heard a decent amount of slight disappointment in the second season, not like outright unhappiness, but slight disappointment. And I would probably hate it if the Minecraft movie wins.
I think from what I've heard, that Devil May Cry was massively well received. I haven't seen it enough to be like, yeah, it's this thing. Like, it's gonna do the best. I haven't like kind of seen any of that. And I think all the kind of Netflix anime style stuff does fairly well. You know what I mean? So I think for me personally, like kind of critically looking at it, I think it will probably be Devil May Cry. But yeah, Minecraft is like the known thing, and The Last of Us is like, it's The Last of Us is such like a darling industry thing that I can see it kind of being the thing that wins. So have you seen any of these?
No, I've not seen any of them. I've heard things about all of them. But out of all of these, the one I would want to see the most is Devil May Cry, because I have played all the games and I love Devil May Cry.
I need to watch it at some point for sure.
Same. I do remember seeing the like initial trailer when it was coming out and going, I do think I want to watch that. So out of all of these, that's really the only thing that I was like, hey, I would actually spend time watching these. So that got my vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I one of those things where it's like I will vote for The Last of Us because it is like the only thing that I've seen.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair reason to put it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be so honest, I didn't even know Until Dawn had a adaptation of anything for the longest time. So
I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard as like a game adaptation, that it's not that good. As a horror movie, it's pretty decent, apparently, or like it's like, it's schlocky kind of like it's gets the scares done kind of thing, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think the one big thing, and actually Ray was someone to say this in Discord, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was not eligible last year because it came out I think in December, and then it didn't get nominated. There was a lot of people were very surprised that Until Dawn got on there and not Sonic the Hedgehog 3, another movie I've not seen, so I can't talk about it, but I know those Sonic movies are normally fairly like well regarded and quite highly like kind of seen. But
Yeah, that's interesting because I've heard a lot of really, really good things about it. But if it's in like that weird, I don't know, how do they treat December releases for this? Do they usually include them, or is
so
it like starting January?
it's I think I'm not sure if it changes year on year, but specifically for this year, the dates were, I believe, November to November. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Games, and by extension, I'm assuming media on the website says games eligible for the Game Awards this year must be available for public consumption on or before November 21st, 2025 at 9 p.m. Pacific. Titles that are released after this date will be eligible for the Game Awards ceremony in 2026. Similarly, games that were released on or after November 22nd, 2024 are first eligible for this year's awards. Hence why you have stuff like Indiana Jones, which released last year, available or included. So yeah, Sonic was eligible, however, did not even get in the top 5, which
That is strange. I definitely would have thought that would go in over Until Dawn because of just how everything I've heard about the adaptation was that yes, it was a good movie, but it had nothing to do with the game outside of the name, really.
yeah, that's basically what I heard as well. There's like a couple of like nods and like some like not actors. I think Peter Stormare, who plays like the kind of doctor dude, was basically still there, but yeah, beyond that there wasn't really much. Yeah, so it's all a bit weird. It's a bit strange. We shall move
I feel
on.
like just like how certain things suffer from the recency bias, you're also gonna have the forgotten in the December of last year bias as well.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I know last year towards the end, Indiana Jones was doing quite well, like review wise, and like even with some people like Eurogame. I think it was Eurogame's Game of the Year, for example. And so I mean, it's cool that it's got some nominations. Has it got a chance of winning anything? Probably not, because I think by the time you get to this point of the year, it's like, oh hey, that was a game that did exist at some point, but you know. It is what it is. Moving on to the next category that we have best multiplayer. So yeah, it says the descriptions on each of these, they all have a little description. So this one says for outstanding online multiplayer gameplay and design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences, irrespective of game genre or platform. You have Arc Raiders, Battlefield 6, Elden Ring Night Rain, Peak, and Split Fiction. You guys, it was Night Rain your multiplayer game of the year? Or
surprisingly, no.
I did put it for mine just because of how much I've played it. I have put so many hours into it, and I do thoroughly enjoy it. I would have gone Peak though. That would have been my number 2 choice.
Was that kind of?
And I voted for Peak. I did. Even though if we go hours wise, I've put so much into Night Rain, but I want to give it to Peak.
I think this is one of those things I was talking about briefly earlier. I think Peak is like such like a streamer game. You know what I mean? I think I feel like I never really saw much of like journalists talking about it much, which I think might have a bit of a kind of like knockback on it. I think it did very well for what it did. I can see it maybe winning. This is a weird category because for me personally, and what I think is going to win is Split Fiction for me. I think what you'll normally find these award shows do is, you know, you have games which don't get awarded somewhere else, so they're like, hey, we'll try to give it to this, you know what I mean? Kind of here, there, and everywhere. I think for me, Split Fiction is literally also the only game on this list that can only be played in multiplayer, because either it has a single player mode or you can play solo, whereas, so that's where I'm like, oh look, it's the definitive multiplayer game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, not being up for Game of the Year, I think that's another one of those games. I think it came out at the beginning of the year, so a lot of people started forgetting about it, especially after what happened. You know, Expedition 33 came out, and it's like, what games came out this year? Huh? What happened? You know,
it kind of puts the blinders on, yeah.
And it's definitely
there were other games this year.
We'll get to it later.
I'll sit on my hands and wait.
Oh
I'll wait, I'll wait.
no. I'm just we will discuss things. But no, Split Fiction. I think I'm also kind of not necessarily biased towards, but it's one of those things where I had such an amazing experience at streaming it with Izzy, and it was just fun, and like those games always do really good with the story. Like, is it better than It Takes Two? For me, no, and I think for most people, no. But like, it still kind of for me stands side by side, and so I want it to win. I think it will probably win. Does Arc Raiders have a chance? I don't know this game. I don't know her.
I feel like Arc Raiders has such a small audience, and it really, like, you're kind of saying how like Peak didn't get a lot of like journalist attention. I feel like Arc Raiders only got so much, and then it died out so fast. Like, I would put Battlefield over Arc Raiders.
I would agree with that at this point. Like, it came in hot once it dropped. Like, that was the hottest thing for like a week or two, and then it's just like you don't hear much about it anymore.
Yeah, I know some people
Whereas,
are still
like,
playing
things like
it, but yeah.
Yeah, and like you still hear. I mean, obviously, like Night Rain just dropped its DLC, so like that's back up in people's attention. Peak is, I feel like everyone's been talking about that since it dropped. That's not really ever faltered. Battlefield is going strong. I do agree with you. I think Split Fiction dropping as early as it did, it's making it a little forgotten. But I know just how well received it is. I've yet to play it. I do plan on it at some point.
You got to
But,
play it.
I know. I want to.
It's so
I want
good.
to. We'll get around to it.
Jazzy, did you play it?
No, because if I'm gonna play with somebody, it's probably gonna be with Santa, because we still have to play It Takes Two together.
Yeah, we need to play It Takes Two, and then we're gonna play Split Fiction. So
Wait, okay, guys, we know what New Year. They haven't said it. I'm saying it for them. Games. Oh,
Games.
I'm
the backlog
excited
grows.
for you guys to be able to get your hands on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm gonna be honest, I forgot that you and Izzy played Split Fiction together.
It was a long
That's
time
how
ago.
long ago that felt.
Yeah.
wow, that does feel like a while, huh?
It's weird because it's one of those things where yeah, it was towards the beginning of the year, and yeah, just since then it's been such a stacked year. It's one of those weird things. I was gonna kind of touch on it more towards the end, but I'll touch on it now. This year is very kind of across all categories, especially it's very stacked, or it's very like, or anything could kind of win. It's funny because if you look at the kind of averages, the averages are actually lower this year in terms of like, the highest scoring game. At least on OpenCritic. Metacritic is a little bit different. That Hades 2 is number 1 with 95. Metacritic has its highest, I think, at 93. Maybe also with Hades 2. But no, like last year, Astrobot was 94, Metaphor Ring Fantasio was 94. Like, so you had like a lot of like kind of more like it's this or one of like, or like Final Fantasy Rebirth, right? Where it was like, these are all the highest ones. And so this year is such like an even playing field across multiple things, seemingly at least on score wise, that if it's not Clair Obscure, it could be anything kind of thing, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's been an overall stronger year because you've had stronger, like you've had like 10 strong games as opposed to like 3, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I think like a lot of these categories, like even ones you would normally be like, yeah, it's gonna be that wins. It's like, oh, but what about this? Like even speaking of, literally moving on, best sports/racing game for a traditional and non-traditional sports and racing game. You got EA Sports FC 26, F1 25, Mario Kart World Rematch, and Sonic Racing Crossworlds. Anyone got anything to say?
Ryan wants to yell at me so bad.
Hey, I just want to hear your take.
I think it's because honestly, we both did this. I think I voted Sonic.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's an absolute fair. From what I've heard, I'm not. So for me personally, I've only played Mario Kart. I've heard Sonic Racing Crossworlds is good. I think for me personally, I used to love like Sonic and Racing Transformed. So like I have a history with kind of the Sonic Racing games, but it was never like the pinnacle game, you know what I mean? The pinnacle kind of racing game. And I think what we're seeing this year is Mario Kart 8 was incredible. And so when Worlds came out, Worlds is by no means a bad game. it's just, unfortunately, it suffers a little bit in kind of its core design they tried to go for with its open world. And so it's one of those things where I think when Mario Kart World shines, it shines like Mario Kart 8. However, because so much of it is kind of just like, hey, you're driving along a road. And like, it was like, you know, when it was first coming out, it sounded really cool. And it's like, oh, it's gonna be like Forza Horizon. And then you're like, there, you're like, oh, that's an open world that I'm not really gonna continue to drive around. And so then a lot of the maps kind of, you have the like typical 3 laps. But like if you're online, a lot of them were like point to point laps. And so it's just like, we're just driving down a giant road against 24 other people. That it just doesn't feel as chaotic and kind of fun. So yeah, I don't know if Sonic Racing to me, like, I don't know, I have not played it. I don't know if it's like stepped this game up from like Transformed. But one thing I will say about Sonic that I have liked seeing is I was kind of like, I was like, oh, this sucks that they don't like have like that many kind of crossover characters. You know, it was literally Sega and All Star Racing rather than Sonic. But you know, we're seeing like there are already some in there. They're getting some for like DLC, including SpongeBob, which I find very strange. But I have heard good stuff. Could you see anything else in this category winning? This is not one of those two, because it's one of those things again where it's like, hey, the other things are like real sports. Would gaming journalists vote for these real sports kind of things? You know what I mean?
I do
But-
feel like this category could go kind of any way. Like I feel like as I don't know, as gamers who like are seeing what people are playing every day, it's like it almost defaults to between Mario and Sonic, right? But the real sports games I think have probably a larger audience and maybe more attention than we might give credit to. So I honestly think this could go to like F1 or the EA Sports, and we would just be like, huh, okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think if any of these is like, if it's not gonna be Mario Kart or Sonic, like I'd say my dark horse might be Rematch. That was pretty hot over the summer, and typically with, I mean, I don't know too much about how F1's community likes the game. I do know that EA Sports FC players, even though they buy it every year, absolutely hate the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see them ever actually wanting to vote for it in this scenario because they only ever complain, but rightfully so, because it's just not great anymore. It used to be really good. I used to play it back in the day, and I haven't wanted to touch it in years.
Yeah, FIFA is one of those. I'm still gonna call it FIFA. FIFA is one of those games. I feel like it has like, it's like almost how this year's Call of Duty had it, where it has one good year and then the next year is kind of a bit poo, because I think it kind of uses the same engine, so they don't upgrade it as much. I do know that last year EA Sports FC did win it. And so I often will see this question as well about, I mean, I don't play a lot of sports games, but like one game that I know people last year and including this year as well, like, why is it not nominated, is the Madden college football game, or I don't know if it's Madden, but the college football game is apparently really good.
Well, yeah, 25s was actually excellent.
Mhm.
I've heard the 26 took a massive step down, but I did buy it because I was really excited for 25. Because you know I've been playing college football literally since I was like 5. And so having that big 11-year gap and then it dropping, I got really excited for it, and it was actually really good. So it was surprising that didn't really win out, because it was like genuinely a good game finally.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like this is where like you then start to see the jury voting kind of come in, because you know, it's like you have a lot of American outlets, but then you have the rest of the world, and football is the world's game, as in soccer.
Mhm.
And F1 has started to have this like meteoric, even, I mean, you know, F1's been around for years, but it's had this like meteoric rise of like popularity for like in the last like 5 years.
Mhm.
And so I think, yeah, you start to see representation of like that kind of stuff, because, you know, there's a lot more juries from around the world voting as well. I agree with Rematch. I know had its moment. But yeah, I think FIFA could maybe do something. Again, I don't know how good this year's iteration was. If last year's was meant to be really good, then this year's probably wasn't. But Mario Kart's right there. Come on now. I will say this one. So I wrote down a couple of games next to each of these where something stood out to me that was not included. One game that came out in the middle of the year, which I heard was very good, and maybe because it's a remake, was not fully kind of remakes can be on the list. Remakes have been on the list before, so it's not like it's exclusive for that reason. There's no Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4, which was kind of surprising to me because I know that game came out and actually reviewed very well. I played it briefly. It seemed fun, but I kind of over my skating game era now. But I don't know if any of you kind of had a thought on that.
I know Santa's a big fan of Tony Hawk games.
Yeah,
skate
I do love
games.
my skateboard stuffs. I will say from everything that I saw in 3 and 4, a lot of people were wanting it to play like the career modes and stuff did in 3 and 4, but they kept them in the same style of 1 and 2, where it was like it's not open world. It's like here's a timer, go do your things. Whereas, like 4, for instance, it's like, oh, hey, you can just roam around, skate around, find an NPC, and then do missions. And then once you do enough missions, you go on to the next place. And they did not have that in the new remake. And I know that made a lot of people not very happy. But I do know that it still scored very well with critics. So it is a little interesting that it didn't flip its way in here. But I'm also not super surprised, mainly because of the player-based reaction to it.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where I was like, I'm looking at it because it never entered my mind, but I was like, oh, is there like anything kind of outstandingly like missing? I was like, oh yeah, that was a game that existed this year. I was like, I should put this on the list and we'll
That
discuss
existed.
it. Yeah, because it was in Game Pass, so I was like, oh, I can play this, and then it's like, I don't need skating games anymore. I'm a huge. I was like, I played Pro Skater back in the day, but from like Underground to American Wasteland was like my kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I love American
that's the good
Wasteland.
shit. Yeah.
We
And
shall.
see, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 was like my time in my skating games. So I surprisingly was not super stoked on the remake because again, yeah, they didn't really like it felt too streamlined into just the do your tricks, do your events, go. Done. I was like, no, let me skate around and just jump off random stuff and fall, and that wasn't there, and I was like, okay, well, I don't need it.
Yeah, it's just like I'll pick that up at some point, kind of thing. I just realized actually the new skate game's not there, but I think that's still kind of early access, and I know it's a bit janky, so not surprising. But yeah, I'm surprised no skating representation anywhere. We just need a new Disney skate adventure game. Moving on to best sim strategy game. So it's the best game to focus on real time or turn-based simulation or strategy gameplay, irrespective of platform you have. And this is where it gets interesting. And I'll talk about this now quickly before we move on to what the games are here. Some games you'll see, or some categories have 6 nominations, some have 5, and it's never like it's like, oh yeah, this always has it this year. So it's always really strange. It's like, why do you sometimes take stuff away? And then why do you sometimes add an extra slot? It's like, oh, because you want certain games to be represented, or like I remember last year the performances people had 5, so there's only 5 people could be up for performance. This year there's 6, and half of them are for Expedition 33. But so it's like, was there only 5 good performances last year, kind of thing? So yeah, you'll notice this with a few awards going forward. But for this one, you have Final Fantasy Tactics, the is it Ivalice Chronicles? Ivalice, bet. Jurassic World Evolution 3, Sid Meier's Civilization 7, Tempest Rising, The Altars, and 2 Point Museum. I personally have 0 input on this. However, I know people in here have played certain games in here.
Maybe I technically have only played one of these. However, I've been a big Civ fan for a long time. Unfortunately, Civ 7 seems to have fallen very short of what people's expectations are for Civilization games. So that narrowed it down for me quite a bit, and I 100% want Tactics to win. And I think it has a decent shot because I know this remake, which people will be like, oh, it's a remake. Well, is it really? Anyway, we won't get into that. It actually expanded a lot on the original release of the game because it includes both the it was almost like a mod that they added in later, And then they've added in the voice acting. They've added both like the classic mode and the updated mode. You can switch between the two. So for me, it felt like a brand new game because it included all the stuff that I didn't actually see when the game first released. And it has been well received. So if it wins, I think it's deserves it. Anyway.
Dan,
Yeah,
have
I
you
got
played
nothing
this?
to add.
Have you not played any
No,
of them?
I haven't played any of them. I also too I am a big fan of the Civ games, and I also heard a lot of the disappointment and how big it fell short, and I was disappointed in that. I know how much people loved Tactics. I can't wait to get around to it. I will eventually, however many years it takes me to play through all the other Final Fantasies first. Uh, I'll get to it eventually, but I've heard great things, so I threw my vote on that because I was like, I don't know what else to put here.
Yeah, that was basically me. I was like, oh, Final Fantasy is a name I know. But I think for me as well,
Yep.
I'm not a huge tactics kind of sim strategy style game. However, I know the kind of legacy of Final Fantasy Tactics, and so when they announced it, I was like, I want to play that game. I will still play it at some point, and like the high review scores for it kind of, are like, oh, get me in on this now. I expect it to win. So it has that thing where it's like it's a remake, and like you said, I know they've added like voice acting and a bunch of new stuff, and so like, is that enough that people are like, yes? I think it probably still will be. I know, yeah, Civ is like a big name. I know Civ, yeah, like you guys have been saying, it kind of seemingly dropped the ball. The Alters is the only other one on there which I've heard like very good things about. And so it would not surprise me if we get some sort of like Alters kind of win. However, I think because like brand recognition is there for Final Fantasy, I personally think that it will probably still win. But yeah, I've heard good things about Alters. Like even like the people were saying, we'll get obviously to performance stuff later, but people were saying that the main guy who voices, he literally, there's like 12 characters, but they're all the same guy, and all of them have like different accents, and so like this guy brought all these like 12 characters to life, and so it's like it feels kind of just like lived in. And I also, from what I've seen of it, there's like a sim side to it, but then there's like a third person kind of exploring mode. So I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I've never had a Tempest Rising even, and I know people love 2 Point, and I know they love Jurassic World, but yeah, I think this will probably be a Final Fantasy win. I think probably.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, let's move on to Best Family. Now this, I thought I'd never say this in my life. Best Family game is actually a very hotly contested thing this year. It's for the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of genre or platform. The nominations are Donkey Kong Bonanza, Lego Party, Lego Voyagers, Mario Kart World. Oh look, they're back again. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, and Split Fiction. This is I don't know what's gonna happen. I have an idea. I personally think Donkey Kong will probably pick up because, surprisingly, this is the only aside from Game of the Year award that is nominated for, and so it's gonna be one of those things where I think they'll be like, a game's really good. I mean, obviously, irrespective, it is also like a high scoring game and seen as a very good game. But yeah, I see that or Split Fiction potentially taking it. I've heard that the Lego games are actually really fun this year. Like these aren't normal Lego game style. It's like literally a Mario Party style, and then like I guess an It Takes Two kind of style one. I think Mario and Sonic will probably have their moment in the sports category rather than anything else. So I think for me personally, I wanted to win in it, and actually, no, I see. This is where I had an epiphany. I thought I wanted Donkey Kong to win it, and I think it will. However, I realized I was like, oh, actually, I like Split Fiction more than Donkey Kong this year. Which I was like, that's something I didn't think was gonna happen.
Yeah, I do think more likely than not, Donkey Kong will probably win this. However, I've also heard really good things about the Lego games. Like Lego Party is apparently a lot of fun. So, I mean, in terms of being like a family play game, because Donkey Kong is it multiplayer or is it just single player? Like
It
it's
is
just...
multiplayer. There's a multiplayer mode. I've not used it myself, but basically, someone can. It's not like someone has free roam, but basically, someone controls Pauline on his back and like was able to like shape, like the world or something.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha. So that kind of solidifies it for me a little bit in Donkey Kong. The fact that it's because when you think family, it's like, yes, it should be family appropriate, but also family play as in the family being involved sort of thing. So more than one person playing, which is why I was like, Lego Party, you could have so many people playing, like an entire family could play that game and enjoy. And I know people are really having fun with it. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Donkey Kong's just gonna take it just because it's, Nintendo name and it's Donkey Kong, and people are gonna go like, that one, it's not winning Game of the Year, so sorry. So it's gotta
Yeah.
have something.
Yeah, I think that probably is going to be what ends up winning. I think any of these could really. This is one of those categories that it's like they're all pretty good. I had not heard of the Lego ones whenever I had placed my votes. I did eventually start to watch some gameplay on both of them, and they look awesome.
Mm.
These look great. So I think really it could go to any of them. I had placed my vote for Sonic just out of lulz. That one was very much just like, oh, I'll pick Sonic again because haha. But I generally think any of these, I'm okay with any of these winning. Genuinely.
Yeah, it's just so surprising to me. I'm like, whoa, this is a stacked category. What the hell? Not moving on to a not so stacked category. No shade. So best fighting game. I say this though. Last year, I believe there's literally like only 3 fighting games that came out, so there's only like 3 nominations. I'll explain the reason I say that is like a tongue-in-cheek thing, but basically, best fighting game for the best game design primarily around head-to-head combat. You have 2XKO, which is the League of Legends style fighting game. You got Capcom Fighting Collection 2, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, and Virtua Fighter 5 Revo World Stage. The reason I made that comment specifically is because of the 5, 3 of them are either like a retooling of it or they are a collection of old games. Which again, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be nominated. But I'm gonna find it so weird if like Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, which is the one that I think could win just because of looking at scores. I mean, I get it. They added stuff like, here's behind the scenes art, here's some videos about when we made this kind of game. Like they are definitely adding stuff to it to make it a thing, but like the gameplay itself has not changed. And so yeah, 2XKO, which also in itself is not even a full release game yet, it's still in like beta, or like it's like available to play on PC, but it's coming to everything else eventually soon. Which makes Fatal Fury like the only one that has like a brand new fully out 1.0 release. I personally think by brand recognition and just for the fact that it is something new and it is good even though it's not finished, I think 2XKO will probably win. I think there's a chance that Mortal Kombat does. But no, from what I've heard about 2XKO, it's meant to be incredibly fun. So I think that's where I'd probably think it would go. But I haven't really got a stake in this category this year, personally, for me at least.
Yeah, I'm not a big fighting game person. However, I'm kind of of the same mind with all these like collections or the re-releases. And again, you said they did include stuff like art, behind the scenes stuff. But if the gameplay itself really hasn't changed from when it was first released, it feels like, why is this here in the nicest way possible? So I actually also went with 2XKO because that's the one I'd actually kind of heard the most positive feedback about.
Yeah, I did pretty much the exact same for the exact same reasons. I can't see a collection of games that have already been released that are just put together as a collection. I can't see a good reason for any of those to win, personally. Really, it was down to Fatal Fury or 2XKO for me. I went 2XKO because I think it's gonna win, but also it has characters I really, really like. So I was like, I'll just go there.
Wait, but have you not heard about how Cristiano Ronaldo is in Fatal Fury? That you can play him as a fighting character?
I have not. No, that's wild.
I'm not even joking. So I will say this in full clarity. I have actually played Fatal Fury. I never streamed it, but I was given access to it. It looked really cool, and I'm sure I've heard very good things about it, but I personally couldn't control it. I was like, I can't do combos, and it felt really kind of awkward for me. But yes, Cristiano Ronaldo is a playable character in that game. It's like the wildest, like, why does this exist kind of thing, and I'm like, I love this.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird. Okay, I want to start with Sana on this next one though, because Sana has just finished the awards too. We are talking best RPG. So for the best game design with rich player character customization and progression, including massively multiplayer experiences, you have Avowed, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, and The Outer Worlds 2. Then you made a good point to me. I think was it yesterday? I think you were like, I would like to see Outer Worlds 2 potentially, not necessarily win it, but like you were like, it's like the game that has like this in-depth kind of customization, correct? Kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely, like, if you read what they have here, like how they list best RPG is for the best game designed with rich player character customization and progression. And like that's pretty much exactly what this game offers. Some of these other ones, like Clair Obscur, I need to preface this. That is my favorite game of all time. I will say that. Even though I don't think it should win this category. I do. I'm full steam ahead on Outer Worlds 2. You have full character customization from the ground up. You have so much customization as far as your progression of your character. You can do so many different runs. You can have, you pretty much make your stats however you want, and it will completely change your playthrough. I can't see how this doesn't deserve the win. I can see how it won't win, and that's because Clair Obscur, this absolute masterpiece of a game, is also sharing a category with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sad, but I had to place my vote there. It's the only thing Outer Worlds 2 is there. I finished it literally yesterday. It's in my top 5 of all time. I love this game so much.
Wait, so you have two games from this year RPGs are in your top 5 of all time? Technically,
yeah, which surprised me. I had not shifted my top 5 for a long time, and even my number 1 game of all time, it had been Metal Gear Solid 2 since I was like 7 or 8, and Clair Obscur knocked it out of the park like that. Just it was immediate. I think by the time I was like halfway through the game, I was like, "This is my favorite game of all time." I think what's happening. And I guess, yeah, it just is. And Outer Worlds 2, I had Outer Worlds 1 in there in my top 5 since that dropped. That's one of my favorite games of all time. And I think that 2 is better in just about every way than the first game.
yeah, 2 took me a little bit of a time to get into, but once I kind of got into the flow of things, I was like, this feels really good. I think for me personally at the beginning, I was like, I can't kill anything, or like I felt like I was dying too fast. So I think that's a game which massively rewards you for what you put into it, which I know to a lot of people can be like it has, for me personally, and maybe to some other people might stumble at the beginning in terms of getting you into it. Yeah, once it gets going, Outer Worlds 2 is incredibly good. Jazzy, which ones on the list you played? Is it just Clair Obscur?
Yes, technically I've only played Clair Obscur. I did watch Santa play the Outer Worlds 2, so I got to see it, and then I have watched some Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 gameplay. I haven't seen much of Avowed. I've seen a little bit of Avowed. And then obviously I have watched people play Monster Hunter Wilds, which I feel like unfortunately because of the other games in this category, Monster Hunter Wilds is just kind of sliding into the back burner. I did not vote for Expedition 33 in this category.
What did you vote for?
I did not. I voted for Outer Worlds 2. It all tee ha-has aside, because it was a little bit of a joke when we were voting for this. I do think that even though I love Expedition 33, when it comes down to the definition of the RPG, it's not the strongest contender in that definition. It was just, if I have to think of it objectively in terms of what you would describe an RPG as, which they outline for you, Outer Worlds 2 is more aligned with that and is a good game and really does follow the RPG pipeline and does a good job at it. So that got my vote.
I'm trying to say is I bribed her to do that.
Oh. No, I fully like hearing that point. I'm like, that's an incredibly good point. And so like it does what it does so well that it made me think actually earlier about kind of how Clair Obscur does do it, and it also does do it very well. There's nothing wrong with it. But yeah, I would like to see something that has like kind of these deeper kind of like mechanics, and like the more you can customize it fully to like how you want to play. You know what I mean? I haven't. So of this list, I've played all of them except from Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So that's the only one that I can't be like, oh yeah, that doesn't that plays like this, or that has. I don't know how deep its like kind of RPG mechanics are. You know what I mean? I think yeah, this this is a clear obscure win probably. Just because it's there. I think, you know, you could see it might be one of these things where Kingdom Come Deliverance wins it because if people are like, oh, well, we want Game of the Year to go to Clear Obscure, so we'll give it to this game here. I think I can see that, but I also can see the argument that other people have where it's like, oh, it'd be so weird if Clear Obscure wins Game of the Year, but then doesn't win its genre category as well, if that makes sense. So yeah, it'll be one of those weird things where I think Clear Obscure will probably still win it because I think it'll win majority of the things it's nominated for. At least on its games specific wise, like art and music stuff, which we'll get to in a little bit, there's a chance that other things potentially push it out on certain stuff. But as like an overall like umbrella term, I think it probably will win. I wouldn't be mad if it does. Of the 5, I think Monster Hunter, from what I know, I had fun with it when it came out. However, it has got that kind of beginning of the year vibe. However, one thing I do know about Monster Hunter is, as time's gone on, the PC version especially has become like a unplayable, or not necessarily unplayable, but like basically it's got like buggy, it's kind of like slowed down, there's issues, and like there's also not a lot of title updates that come out with it, or it's very sporadic. However, you know, I personally am just going to judge it from kind of what I played at the beginning of the year, which was still an incredible game. So to see it like win something, or to see it kind of have a good time with something, I wouldn't be mad at it. This is actually the category though, which I have the most notes on in terms of what is missing. And not necessarily because of like, oh, it deserves to be there, or just like, you know, these were better games. But in terms of RPGs that came out this year where it has nothing here, Pokemon Legends EA, not here. Was it, you know, that I think there was a lot of discourse around that game. It did do some stuff well, it did do some stuff not so well. However, we can't discuss Pokemon without discussing Digimon, which is also not here, which is another game which people were like, whoa! And then it wasn't nominated, people were like, ah! Also not nominated, Oblivion remake / remaster. It's a remaster, so maybe that's why it's not up, but like, it was like one of those things that's described almost as like a remake, but like that shadow dropped out of nowhere, and people loved it when it came out. And so again, earlier I was looking for like what I played, I was like, what have I played that's not nominated? And I was like, oh yeah, that exists. And then I kind of put it here just because it can fall into the category, but I imagine it would probably be action adventure. But no Assassin's Creed Shadows either, which it's also not up for action adventure. So the fact that that's only up for one award for accessibility, seemingly not seen as like the worst game, but maybe it's just not good enough to get nominated in such a strong year again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think with Assassin's Creed, some of it could just be fatigue on the series. It's people just might be starting to get sick of it now, which it hurts me to say because I loved Assassin's Creed for a long time, and I kind of hit that too. It's like, there's just too many of them now.
I enjoyed
I do
Assassin's
think
Creed.
I heard good things about it, but I also heard like when it was first releasing, the hype was kind of there, and then it came out and people were like, hey, this is really fun, I'm having a good time, and that did die off really quickly. It also, I feel like a lot of people said it was just Assassin's Creed. So it's like it wasn't a standout of an Assassin's Creed game, so it didn't really get a lot of highlight, and it didn't really like stay relevant in the conversation for long enough to make, I think, a memorable impact on most people.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I enjoyed when I played it. It didn't stick long in the mind just because, unfortunately for me, the characters in that game weren't the strongest either. There was nothing bad with them. I know some people had issues with them just because of how they looked, you know, which is always like a why. But yeah, it was one of those games where I remember it ended and like credits started rolling. I was like, wait, that's the end? You know what I mean? Like, also again, going back to my open world, I'm scared of open world seemingly. The move towards open world from Assassin's Creed is kind of not what I want. So as much as I did enjoy it, I kind of just stuck to the main path and kind of went through it. So, but yeah, I thought I'd mention it alongside RPGs because there is RPG elements in it. So, but speaking about action adventure though, just in case you were like, oh, well, technically, actually an action adventure game. Like I said, not nominated here. However, the nominations you have for action adventure are Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei, Hollow Knight Silksong, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and Split Fiction. Are we looking at a Hollow Knight win here, do you reckon?
Probably.
Mm.
I think probably.
Yeah, I would think so.
So
It's
oh, there's such this is another like every category feels stacked. Most of them, I would say like 85% of the categories this year just feel stacked. So I'd say, yeah, I think this is gonna win, but this could also win. Or if this wins, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be surprised because my vote would be for Yotei. I think I have stayed away from Yotei because I do want to play it and I don't want to be spoiled. However, all of the feedback that I've gotten in terms of the action in that game is top tier. However, Silksong is Silksong, and the copium was strong enough to make it a reality. So it is going to get some recognition somewhere, and it might be this category.
Dan, have you got anything?
I had a tough time with this one. I've only played one of these games personally, and that was Indiana Jones. But I do know really any of these could win. I know Silksong, we all know how much hype that's had, and we know it absolutely delivered on that hype. Death Stranding 2 might have got my vote if Kojima put it on PC so I could have played it, but I had to go Indiana Jones. I loved it. I didn't roll credits on it. I did get to play it for a bit. I did really enjoy it. It was better than I expected it to be. I thought, oh, this should be a good game. Ends up, it's fantastic. It's a really, really well made game. I've also heard nothing but great things about Yotei, which I'm also avoiding spoilers on, so I haven't watched too much gameplay. I'm just kind of going off of the reception I've heard from people that have played it. They love this. So any of these games could win, really.
Yotei's an interesting case because it's actually up for an incredible amount of nominations here. However, it didn't get a Game of the Year nomination. It was one of those ones where, like, even when I was predicting what the 6 would be for Game of the Year, I was wrong on one. I thought Split Fiction would be up. I kind of, it was like always between Split Fiction and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 in my mind. And Yotei was also like just there, if that makes sense. Of like, it could be one of these because if you look at the Game Awards history, they love to have a Nintendo representation. They love to have Sony representation in their top 6. So it's like, oh, well, maybe it's Death Stranding or Yotei, you know what I mean? But so Death Stranding was kind of like the one. Also, I will say quickly, just briefly, even though we're not talking about rumors and stuff yet. Sandy, you might be looking forward to seeing Death Stranding 2 sooner than you think on PC if rumors to be believed, because apparently it's been ESRB rated, which wouldn't happen unless
that would be awesome.
So it wouldn't surprise me if we might get a Game Awards announcement of like PC dropping today, you know what I mean, potentially, or at least them kind of coming up
so bad, but my heart would be so happy.
So yeah, I think we might see that on PC sooner rather than later. I think of these 5, I like I said, I said at the beginning, I kind of kicked this off with it. I think Silksong will probably win. I haven't played it. I think on this list, I have played Split Fiction and I've played Indiana Jones to completion. I started Death Stranding 2, but I have not got into it enough to be like, oh yeah, this has a chance. I will say this, I played Death Stranding 1 for the first time this year, so I'm excited to see more of Death Stranding 2 at this point. But yeah, this is one of those ones again where I look at it from like this kind of lens of like, what will the jury vote for? And because of Clair Obscur, it's all because of Expedition 33. Silksong might not necessarily win in other categories. So if it hasn't got a chance somewhere else, they want to award it in a place where it has a chance to not be beaten by Clair Obscur, you know what I mean? So I think we see a win here. I think Indiana Jones is one of those weird things where I've talked about this a little bit recently. I feel like not many people have played that game, like publicly at least. I remember Alex said to me, oh, it's like you and like one other person that played it. I'm like, you're not wrong. I feel like there was a weird kind of take around it that it was a bad game from people who I guess maybe had like, they were like, oh, it's an Xbox game now, so boo, you know what I mean? It's not on PlayStation, or it is now, but and so there's like a discourse around it, and I'm like, it's actually very fun. Like the puzzles are incredible, like the voice acting is great. I mean, he's literally up for an award. And like I said earlier, Eurogamer did give it its Game of the Year last year, and it is highly regarded. So is there a chance? Like, is it too long in the night for it? How long ago it came out that it doesn't stand a chance? I don't know. Split Fiction again had a chance. I think all of these games, as I said, because it's such a strong list across the board this year, Any of them could. I mean, I could see a world where Yote wins it, you know. But I personally think Silksong will probably take it away just because they want to give it. Like I don't know. Like I haven't looked and I can't remember back when Hollow Knight 1 came out. Like if it really won any awards, because I think Hollow Knight 1's one of those, or just Hollow Knight in general, I should say, is one of those games where a lot of people knew how good it was at the beginning, but it didn't kind of pick up its momentum until kind of a few years, like, or just as time went on. So like, do they want to give it something? So like, I can see that like happening kind of thing. But no, yeah, my vote would be Split Fiction personally, just again because I love that game so much. But I think there's a strong chance for anything. But yeah, for me personally, I think Silksong probably does take it.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Same.
Okay, we will move on to best action game. So for the best game in the action genre, focused primarily on combat, we have Battlefield 6, Doom: The Dark Ages, Hades 2, Ninja Gaiden 4, and Shinobi: Art of Vengeance. Well, my game of the year's in here, so I am gonna be biased. I want Hades 2 to win. I think it will win again because I think it falls into the same kind of category that Hollow Knight does, where they want to give certain games certain things. It is, like I said, critically, it is the highest rated game of the year. So like, I think there could be this upset amongst even other awards where Hades actually picks some stuff up, because I may be eating my words in a week's time. But because I mean, for example, it hasn't got any nominations for like performance. But what Hades 2 does so well, oh my god, I can't talk about this game without going on a tangent, so I'll hold my tongue. No. But if you played Hades 1 and loved it, play Hades 2, because personally for me, it's a better game. At the beginning I was like, oh, this is a little bit different. But when you get through it again, oh my god, Hades 2 is so good. Yeah, that's what I'll say on these, except from one last thing. I am so happy Shinobi has a nomination here, because if anyone hasn't played that game, Shinobi: Art of Vengeance, incredible game. Plays amazingly well, looks incredible. Yeah, if anyone wants to like check that out at some point, I think it's like a cheaper game as well. So like, I definitely recommend Shinobi: Art of Vengeance to anyone that has not played it. Yeah, what do you guys all think? What are you thinking?
Well, I'm on the same page. I think Santa is as well. I want Hades
Yeah.
2 to win. I want it to win because I agree. There are going to be any other category that it's in. If it's up against Expedition 33, it's not going to beat that out as much as I would love it to. And it is the only game in this category that I've played, but I do think just based on the fact that it has been so highly rated, it does what it does so well. It does need to win a category, and if it's going to be one, this could be it. This could be Hades 2 category.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I think this might be the most lopsided category. I think that Hades will win this in a landslide. Like if they were to ever show the numbers of these votes, I think with this one, that's probably going to be the biggest margin out of all of them. Of course, all of these deserve to be put here. Like they're here for a reason. But Hades 2 is just that good. And I don't see it not winning this. I feel like that would be probably the biggest shock if any of these other 4 games take it.
Yeah, I think looking at it from a critical score wise, I think Battlefield was highly scored this year. People say it's like the best Battlefield in a while, but I think saying the best Battlefield game compared to like something which like Hades 2 is kind of, you know, it is great. It's not where other people are like rating it. I think the other games I've heard, Ninja Gaiden 4 is very good. Like a return to form for that series. I've heard that Doom was a step down. Oh, I'm frozen.
That is a great.
That is
freeze
horrible.
frame.
Don't look at me.
It's like you're prepping to sneeze.
Yeah. Yeah, Doom, I think Eternal was up for Game of the Year back in 2020. So yeah, I actually, the funny thing is I have played Doom: The Dark Ages and I haven't played the other ones. Because we'll get into why, and it will help me talk about another award later on, teasing.
Okay. Ooh,
But yeah,
I like this.
I actually get weirdly very sick playing Doom style games. Like Duke Nukem also fucks me up.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I can't get through them. I don't know why. It's not like I'm like, oh, is it motion blur? I don't think so fully, because other games I'm fine with it. But yeah, I don't think Shinobi will win. Again, I know it's been reviewed very well. But no, Hades is Hades. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's kind of a lock for sure. The next category is probably one personally that I think we'll talk about it, but we're probably gonna be like next. Best VR/AR game. You have Alien Rogue Incursion, Arcane Age, Ghost Town, Marvel's Deadpool VR, and The Midnight Walk. I've not played any of them. I don't have a VR headset.
Same. Whenever I did my voting on stream, I let chat pick this one because I was like, I don't know, and it seemed that the Midnight Walk is kind of where people were leaning on this. So I was like, all right, I'll go with it. And I looked into it. I was like, this actually looks really sick. I'm just a little sad it's VR because
no, you can play it without VR.
Oh, that's good to know.
So yeah, I was gonna say this. So I know Jazz hasn't said anything yet, but I'll quickly kind of say this. I think it might win, because yeah, that game can be played without VR. I think it's on PlayStation Plus, so like people can get access to it, I believe. That's the one game that I do want to play. Looking at it from a critical lens, I think Arcane Age is the highest scoring one. I know nothing about it, so I'm like, for me, I'm like, Midnight Walk's the one I want to play, so that's the one I'll vote for. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna win. This is we have actually a little plug for anyone that is here in the live chat. We have our little community little poll thing where you guys, or not poll, but like you guys can pick what you think will win the awards, and then as our community we'll see kind of who does the best. This was the one where I was like, oh that one. You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on VR?
I basically just picked I picked the one that I had actually heard about, which was the Midnight Walk. I remember seeing a trailer for it, and it's like the stop motion, and I thought it was really, really cool. So I was like, that seems really interesting. However, I feel like in a category like this, the Marvel tag might give it a little bit of a boost. So we might see Deadpool win. But other than that, I unfortunately don't know much about the other games. So I also went with what was familiar. And we'll see. At this point, it could be anybody's game in this category.
Yeah, I was like, in the same vein that you thought about Marvel, I was like, yeah, Marvel for sure, maybe, but also Alien, maybe, kind of thing. So yeah, I was like, it's gonna be like one of the known ones, but then like I said, Arcane Age, which is something I know nothing about, is the highest rated. So I'm like, Ghost Town who? Everyone else has a chance maybe, but I have no idea. I'm just like, is VR dead? Like, does anyone really care about it that much anymore? Like, maybe controversial.
It's wild because it's still getting pushed really hard. Like, I think the last like Game Awards show there was a whole section of it that was dedicated to VR games, and it's just like, okay, I guess it's still happening, or they're trying to push it because it is dying. I don't know.
It's a weird one because I know Meta have got these new headsets coming out, so like it's more accessible than it ever was, but I feel like still no one particularly cares, at least general public. So yeah, I was just like, next.
Next.
So another one where I'm kind of like, okay, best mobile game. For the best game playable on a mobile device. Thank you, Jeff Keighley. You have Destiny Rising, Persona 5 The Phantom X, Sonic Rumble, excuse my butchering of the name, Uma Musume, pretty dubbed, the horse racing girl game, and Wuthering Waves.
Listen, Wuthering Waves is going to win this. We all know this.
Really?
Let's be real. I think so. Actually, I'm going to be honest. I voted for Uma Musume as the only one that I've played, and it is picking up a lot of traction. So it could be an upset, but Wuthering Waves has been beloved as a game since it came out. So I would be surprised if it doesn't win.
Yeah, Wuthering is one of the biggest gachas out there that has a very strong fan base. I also did pick Uma Musume just because it looks so fun. I didn't want to pick the other three. Like seeing Destiny, I was like, that one's just personal. I see Destiny, I'm like, no. But the others, like, I don't know much about Sonic Rumble. I don't know much about Persona 5, Phantom X. I haven't seen really anything on that. And it was between Ubusume and Wuthering Waves, and I was like, oh, I'll pick the horse game. Why not?
Yeah, I know the buzz around Horse Girl game is like huge. I know a lot of people who play it, but it then comes into my mind where I'm like, is this another thing like I talked about peak earlier, where it's seen in like the streaming space and like our space as like, look how cool this and fun this game was, then like to a kind of critical like view. I don't know if it reviewed how it reviewed. I think it was fine. But like even just looking at like articles on like sites and kind of just that stuff, it's not talked about a whole lot, surprisingly, for how much I feel like I hear about this game. Because like when I first saw this, I was like, oh, lock in on that. However, just from a jury standpoint, I personally think that Persona 5 is going to win it, just because it's again talking about brand recognition from the last one. Destiny and Sonic are also like known brands. However, from what I'm aware of Persona 5, this Phantom X at least, it kind of still has that element of Persona 5 to it alongside the gacha element. Destiny is all kind of over the place and kind of how it is right now. And Sonic Rumble is actually the only one on this list that I've played, and it is a fun game. But I feel like other games have more kind of like more behind it. Sonic Rumble also only just came out, so it's like one of those ones where it's like I was surprised it was even up and nominated. And it's if everyone's like, what's Sonic Rumble? It's basically Fall Guys, but with Sonic characters. And it is fun. Does it have room to grow? Yes, but I also potentially see it not surviving long, unfortunately. I also, looking at just from the fact that it's the best mobile game, I also know all these games are available on PC to an extent. And so I'm like, how many people, like, how does it actually play on a phone? You know what I mean? That was something that I also was like, I wonder if this is a consideration. Because I mean, I have an old phone at this point, but I'm like, I think my phone would die trying to play Persona 5, the Phantom X.
My phone would explode trying to play any of these.
I would also, we would remember that iPads technically count as mobile. It would be an app
True.
on that. So any sort of like, anything that's not a PC, it would still technically work. It's not just phone locked. So I know the Hoyo and Hoyo adjacent games are huge, and a lot of people do just like iPad play those on top of doing console and PC.
Yeah, I think for me, Persona, I think might win it just again because if people don't necessarily play these games, then that. But like you said, I think Wuthering Waves is like the next like big dedicated kind of like gacha kind of game in this field. So yeah, I think it'll probably be between Horse Derby game and Wuthering Waves and Persona. But you know, we'll see. I see like no one talking about Destiny Rising like at all. So yeah, I personally don't know, but we shall see. Any closing remarks on that, or should we move on?
I got nothing.
It's time to start getting a little contentious, I think. We should move on to the next category.
It is. Okay. Actually, no. Wait. We're skipping forward one. I just remembered I had this listed slightly different to me in my notes because we're gonna come around to the other one. We're gonna go to best independent game.
Okay.
We're gonna circle round to so in the running order it was best debut indie, but we'll come back to it. So best independent game. So for outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system, you have Absalom, Bullpit, Blueprints, Collapsical Expedition 33, Hades 2, and Hollow Knight Silksong. Now, where do we start with this category? Because
what a category.
It's one of those things again where this is where it comes down to kind of like, what does an indie game mean in the year of our Lord 2025? It's like, does that necessarily, should that affect what gets nominated, what doesn't? Like, because you know, there's been a lot of kind of discussion online of this, like, you know, back in 2023, by all standards of what we are deeming an independent game, Baldur's Gate 3 was an indie game, could have and should have maybe then been up for in best independent game in that year. By also kind of the opposite of that, Dave the Diver, was not an indie game, had a publisher, had a decently sized studio, and was up for indie game, seemingly because it was a pixel style, smaller title that was like download only. And so then it's like, does indie game now just mean style? Is it a mixture of both? Like, you know, back when indie games were kind of starting to be big around the, you know, the Xbox 360, like arcade style stuff, you know, you had like Braid and Fez and Castle Crashers. You look at a lot of these games now, and some of them are like single developers. Blueprints, I believe, is one person. Ballpit, I believe, is a team of 9. I counted when I played that game in the credits. Aside from like they had extra people, like the core team was 9. Whereas Hades and Hollow Knight, I'm pretty sure have quite big teams. No, that's a lie. Silksong has 3, I think.
Yeah, they're a 3-person team.
I don't know much about Absalom, and from just, you know, seeing all these reports about Clair Obscur, that's a team, at least at its core, is 30 people. So like, I mean, a lot of the discourse online is, should Clair Obscur be here? Definition-wise, yes. But also definition-wise, technically, if it's independent, it means it should be self-published. Or, like, that's what people argue. Which means if you look at the 6, technically only 2 of them should be up, which is Hades and Silksong, because they are self-published. However, they are also big franchise titles who can afford to do so. So it's a weird one that it's like you you can argue so many which way about what should be, what shouldn't be. Which is why, personally, for me, I don't know how they do it in the future. What I would like to see is, we have 2 awards for indie games, right? We have Best Independent Game, Best Debut Independent Game, which is another thing we'll also discuss in what does debut mean. I would like to see them either add or at least change one of the awards to be kind of based on team size. Because, you know, especially in today's world, it seems like being self-published is not the easiest thing to do. So I would like to see games potentially be more highlighted based on how small the team is, like Blueprints and Ballpit, for example. I mean, Hollow Knight would technically be alongside it. Kind of like have that moment, because we're in the year where Clair Obscur is going to win everything. And I think that's where a lot of this kind of thing comes from, where it's like, you know, Balatro had its massive time to shine last year, and Blueprints was touted as the next Balatro when it first came out. And I know people love Blueprints. However, it seems like Blueprints will not probably win an award, maybe win an award. Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on it, on that kind of stuff? Where do you stand, I guess?
These are definitely tough. This category is another stacked one. Because you're right, it is tough, because there's developers, and then there's developers who work with publishers, and technically the developer itself would still be under the indie category, because I mean, you've got Blueprints it's published by Raw Fury,
yeah.
who has plenty of games under their belt. Ballpit was Devolver Digital, plenty of games under their belt. Same with Expedition 33 being under Kepler Interactives. They have plenty of games under their belt. However, I appreciate that they're still trying to, like, hopefully, at least, that's what, by appearances, they're trying to highlight the developer of the game. So even if they are published using another, you know, company or entity or studio, the actual development of the game is what's being highlighted in its core. Because, like, again, it is truly, it's the developer's team that's doing the heavy lifting on the actual game itself. So it's definitely a murky gray area, because some, I would argue, there are more indie games than others in this category. But you got Expedition 33 in there and it counts, so it's probably going to win. Even though I would not be surprised if Hades managed to take it, or if Silksong manages to take it, or even Blueprints. I would love to see Blueprints get recognized for something, because that game has so much content. It's wild. One person did that. That's it's unreal how much is in that game, and done by one person. So as much as I would love to see some recognition there, I do think, since Expedition 33 is in the category, it's probably going to take it.
I'm kind of in that same boat. Really, all these are, in my eyes, deserving. I feel like they still all fit the independent independent game category. Clair Obscur just is that good for me. I can also see Hades. I can see Silksong. I can see Blueprints. Yeah, Blueprints, phenomenal game that I feel like kind of came out of nowhere. Like I know a lot of people were like, it still had a little bit of hype before it released, but like not crazy. And then once people started playing, they're like, oh, y'all should play this. You need to play this. And I'm glad I did because it's fantastic. And the fact that that is made by one person, yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, Claire Obscure for me, I think has this one as good as much as I love Hades too, because I really do. It just is that good. It just deserves it in my eyes.
Yeah, I think Claire Obscure wins this award. I would like to see, of course, Hades win. I would like to see Blueprints get something. I have yet to play it. I do want to play it, but I know people kind of have opinions on that game and want to see it do well. But, and this is where we'll move on to best debut indie, because I actually think people might vote for Blueprints in this one. Because in this category, you got Blueprints, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Despelote, and Dispatch, which also, you know, is kind of like the public's little darling right now. I think if people do that whole thing of like, okay, well, we're not necessarily going to fully double up on Claire Obscure, which, you know, some people will absolutely do so. But I think people might like kind of look at both of them and be like, okay, well, this is the best indie game. However, again, debut and how small the team was, people might be like, okay, well, we'll give this one to Blueprints. This might be where Blueprints gets its flowers, if that makes sense. So I think debut indie is probably more likely where we'll see Blueprints potentially pick something up if it does. But yeah, I don't know what do you guys think about that?
I kind of agree. I will admit I voted for Claire Obscure still, but if there is going to be one, like Blueprints could very realistically take this, because it truly is, when it comes to like a debut game being that good from an indie studio, especially being one person, is like top notch. Like that's super commendable. So as much as I have personal preference, I almost want not my vote to win. I want Blueprints to win more than the one I voted for almost.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm in the same boat. I did vote for Claire. But Blueprints winning would be really cool. I also think, you know, Dark Horse here, Dispatch, that was really good. I know it, like ad hoc, of course, you know, it's a team made up of ex Telltale, so like they've been around the block, but of course, you know, first game of the studio totally fits this category. And it is an absolute masterpiece. I think it's, at least in my opinion, the best game of its style that's been released. So I would not be surprised if Dispatch sneaks in there. But if I had to, like, if you know, if it's like, hey, you could pick to rechange your vote here, I would maybe lean Blueprints or everything else, just because I do think that would be a great piece of recognition for the single dev that did this.
I want to quickly circle back to something you just said, which is something that I also wanted to briefly touch upon. How you talk about Dispatch being ex-Telltale. And so there was also, again, people talking online. Well, not all of ad hoc, but a very high majority of ad hoc is Telltale games in all but name. And so people were like, well, isn't this is not that debut game? Yes, it's one of those weird things, right, where it's like, I sit on the fence of like, you know, it's a new team. You can't penalize like having like 10. If it's, let's say it's like a 30-member team, you have 10 members from Telltale. I don't think you can penalize that because you still have a majority who are not. But there's an argument around, and literally you might be like, why are there only 4 games nominated here? Megabonk, if people aren't aware, was nominated for this award. However, the person who is developing the game asked to be withdrawn because they has said that they can't in good faith be nominated here because this is not their debut game. They are just developing it under a new game. I think they're solo developers, so like it's one of those weird things where it's like, you know, I think that's what opened the floodgates of people kind of discussing this point is, you know, again, you can talk about even Expedition 33. There's a lot of Ubisoft people at that studio, you know what I mean? And so I don't personally agree with it, but it's just one of those things where it's like, again, what does debut mean? You know, and it's just like, this is why I think if I was to see one of them get changed, I would like to see this award get changed to like best. I just think someone said it before, like, hidden gem, but I don't necessarily agree with that because I don't think that necessarily denotes like a size of a studio kind of thing. But yeah, it's definitely one of these weird things this year that a lot of kind of like discussions been had around what does any of this mean anymore, you know, like what do these genre categories even mean, you know? But no, yeah, I think Clarabscure is probably like 90% going to win this. Blueprints I think has a strong chance. For me, I want Dispatch, you know what I mean? But I doubt it. I've actually heard very good stuff about Despelote, and it is nominated for other stuff later on as well. Which makes me think that maybe we'll see that win later on, but we'll get to it. Yeah, this is probably gonna be a back-to-back Clarabscure win again, which is fine. Speaking about when categories get a bit confusing, we move on to best community support and best ongoing game. People get very confused about which one means which kind of when that's happening. So yeah, to read what best community support means at least. Oh, we've lost Jazzy.
I'm frozen. I'm frozen. I'm gone. Oh no.
Yeah, no, on my screen. Do you need to redo the thing?
To redo the thing. Oh,
there you are.
No.
So yeah, for best community support, it says recognize a game for outstanding community support, transparency and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity and game updates / patches. I think it's that last little bit that gets people confused because like, isn't that what best ongoing games also about in terms of like updates and stuff? But for best community support, you have Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, Helldivers 2, and No Man's Sky. I personally voted for, I think, Fortnite, but that's also just mainly because it's the one I play. And I know this year especially, Fortnite's had an incredible year. I know, you know, it's often sometimes like, oh, Fortnite's kind of, you know, it's gone past peak. It absolutely has. But I feel like there's been a lot of positive kind of talk around Fortnite again this year, which is interesting to see. I would just say from like a history of this award, normally you see Final Fantasy or No Man's Sky normally kind of pick something up here. But you do have Baldur's Gate 3 there, which is always a darling of the industry. So like, this is another one where it's like open. I haven't really got a say either way on any of this. So like, I'm gonna be like, they'll be like, Fortnite wins. I'm like, cool. Baldur's Gate 3 wins. All right, you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. What about you guys?
Kind of the same. I'm gonna be honest. I basically did not play much of any of these games. I have dabbled in Fortnite. I have played some Baldur's Gate 3, but I've not played Helldivers 2. I've not played Final Fantasy 14 or No Man's Sky. When it comes to like community support, I think this year Final Fantasy 14 really had a lot of like collabs and stuff that the community was really stoked about. And they really did, kind of like how you're saying Fortnite had a pretty good year introducing a bunch of new stuff. I think with 14 being a darling of especially this category and ongoing games, it's potentially a front runner. I do think Baldur's Gate 3 unfortunately lost a little bit of traction with the last of the patches that they did. There was some disgruntlement from a good chunk of the community and kind of what they've did towards the end. I have no personal stake in that. That's just kind of what I heard. So as much as I think No Man's Sky deserves some credit for what it has become, which I can talk about later, I think Final Fantasy 14 is probably pretty likely in this one.
Yeah, that's probably where it's going to go in my eyes. I know that the community is very, very happy with Final Fantasy 14. I have played all of these but that one. I've played Helldivers, I've played No Man's Sky, I played Fortnite, I played Baldur's Gate 3, but I haven't really played any of them in a bit. So as far as like how the support's going right now, I'm not too sure. I just kind of threw a random guess. I picked Baldur's Gate 3 for my vote. Really, any of these I think could win.
Yeah, I it's one of these ones where it's like, what won last year? Give it to the other one. Between like Final Fantasy 14 and No Man's Sky. Then, like I said, they typically go back and forth and kind of, I feel like at least. But again, maybe I'm confusing that they go back and forth on best ongoing as well. which, funnily enough, they are also both nominated for, alongside Fortnite again, Helldivers again, and Marvel Rivals. I actually want to quickly jump in because I did put in my notes and I forgot to mention it earlier. I was surprised that Marvel Rivals was not up for best multiplayer game. Probably because it's one of those games where it's like, or one of those, it's such a strong year. What was in multiplayer? Arc Raiders, Battlefield, Elden Ring, Peak, and Split Fiction. So yeah, I can see why it wouldn't necessarily be alongside those. But that's another one of those games where it came out literally as we record this. It's celebrating its 1 year anniversary. So it is is eligible from this point. I know a lot of people who love that game. It also made Overwatch put it's kind of like, oh my god, we need to step our game up. And so yeah, it was strange to me that it's in ongoing, which I would consider ongoing to be like a game that was available from the previous year, even though it technically is, in terms of like what was eligible kind of thing, to then be like, hey, look, it's still going well. So yeah, I was like, oh, it's not up for multiplayer, but I wonder if that means that people might vote for it here as a best ongoing thing, or if we think kind of what we were talking about with community support, if the same thing is like, oh, it's gonna be one or the other of Final Fantasy or Fortnite or No Man's Sky. We haven't talked about Helldivers at all. Like, is that kind of a thing of like, is that what the state of this game is like? You know what I mean? I know it had a big year with like it had this Halo crossover, but beyond that, I think it added a new like third kind of enemy type or something. I haven't played that game.
I think in terms of additional content, I think it's starting to. I think it's there. They did just do a little bit of stuff, but they haven't done kind of enough to like feel like it's a highlight versus all these other games that do constantly put out new content. So I just didn't hear much. This one I would love No Man's Sky to win because No Man's Sky is a completely different game from when it first got released, and it went from everyone absolutely hating on it to absolutely loving it. So I would love to see it win.
Yeah, the redemption arc of No Man's Sky from release to even like a year after was great, and just to see how much better it's been getting since it dropped, I think that perfectly fits the description of this category like to a T. Like I don't think that there's any game that really fits this as well. It is surprising to see Rivals in here because I am with you. I feel like ongoing, whenever I think of this category, it's like, okay, a game that's been around for a while that is still, still has a pretty solid player base and is, still going. People are still enjoying it. Rivals feels too new to me to be here. I feel like, next year this would be something, if Rivals keeps its momentum going, seeing this here next year, I'd be like, all right, cool. Yeah. Awesome to see Rivals and ongoing. If I don't know how I feel about it being here this year though.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like going back to what I was saying, it's like, whilst it has been technically out for a year, by the time the awards show happens, it's like with the contention of when it can be up or not, it's technically not been out long enough to be in my opinion. Like, yeah, like you're saying, it should be there like next year if it keeps up.
Yeah, I
think also just because of me being an Overwatch player, I see them side by side, and they both do. They both have enough stuff. They get a bunch of new characters, a bunch of new maps. And I'm like, well, where's Overwatch's love? It's never going to come back. It dropped its PvP, and people are like, no, I'm done with it. But no, I think No Man's Sky, like you talk about, Jazzy. Has this game been out for like 10 years almost at this point? I feel like.
It's been
quite
a while. Yeah.
It's been long. And I know it's had a lot of updates in the last year, adding new stuff, fixing some stuff. Like even as they they are literally gearing up to launch this new game, which they announced that the game was last year. So yeah, I think it probably might win something. Yeah, it's another one of these ones where I'm gonna be like, okay, that one, cool, good, another award on the shelf. Also, I will say this. I'm not going to say it here, but if anyone hasn't seen the tweet from Sean Murray over at No Man's Sky, I implore you have a look. I'm not going to talk about it here, but anyway. Yeah, we'll talk about that another time. And by that I mean not on this. Moving on to games of impact. So for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message, you have Consume Me, Despelote, here it is again. Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, South of Midnight, and Wonder Stop. I have played one of these games. I have downloaded another one, and I've heard very good stuff about the rest of them. For me, personally, I want South of Midnight to win it. That's a game which I'll talk about it a little bit more. That's probably the game this year for me, and for a few people who wrote in to add, give it their thoughts as well, which we'll talk about later on. Is the game where, was it the best game that came out this year? No. But what it does so incredibly well, it does incredibly well. In terms of its music, its art style, its voice acting. And so I think it's up for this, and it's up for another award in accessibility. So I would like to see it win. I think it has a strong chance. I know Wonder Stop has some buzz around it. And I think some people who worked on it were also worked on like Stanley Parable, which I know is held in high regards. Lost in Bloom is literally made by the same people who did like Life is Strange, so that has, you know. And then the other two, like I said earlier, Despelote is a game which I didn't really know much about. I remember when they were announcing the awards, I was like, I don't know what this game is. Looked at the picture that we can see on the website. I was like, oh, I have seen this game. I bet it's very good. And then Kasumi is like the one like that I've heard probably the most about in terms of that I haven't played. I've heard it's also incredibly good. But yeah, for me personally, it has to be South of Midnight. Just a lot, not even for the side that it's the one that I have played. It's the one that I just want to see kind of get its flowers, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I loved South of Midnight. It is the only one of these I've played too. I did want to look up the other ones before I like fully locked this in. So I did do a little bit of digging. It's like, okay, how these stories, you know, how do they fit this? And they all absolutely nail this from what I can tell. But South of Midnight for me, just, you know, based off of what the category is in right now, it really nails the story. It fits you know, pro-social meaning message. It talks a lot about race, a lot about disability, and I feel like they tackle those very well, and the story is very moving. And like by the time I finished it, I was like, gosh, this is fantastic. You know, it felt too short to me. That's the only downside I have to it. It felt like it ended too fast. And I was like, oh, I want more of this. This is so good. But like, maybe it's the perfect length. But it was fantastic. I do think this deserves this one.
Yeah, this is definitely a category that I have not played any of these games, unfortunately. I've seen a little bit of South of Midnight. I've seen a little bit of Lost Records. I had heard about Wanderstop and Consume Me, and then Despelote I hadn't heard a lot about, but when we started talking about it, the feedback was great. So this could be a category that could go anywhere. I did vote for South of Midnight because I also think it deserves some recognition. But yeah, honestly, any of these winning in this category would fit.
Yeah, it's one of these ones where I'm like, it's one that I think anything which kind of is here deserves to like have this, you know, just have its recognition. So I think one thing that the awards often do, which I mean I haven't personally seen this year or look, but normally it raises the profile of games. So like even for me, like I'm now more intrigued. I want to go and like try out Despelote, for example, or something, because I'm like I want to see what it's about, and so it's always nice to kind of see that kind of thing. Yeah, I personally hope that South of Midnight kind of wins it. Because yeah, I think the only thing I'll say about that game, which I think for me is maybe the reason why it's not favored a lot, or like it's like, oh, what stops it being great and goated is, you know, its combat doesn't really evolve. And so, like, I just think remove that side of it and look at all the other stuff, which makes it like a 9 out of 10. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I want to see stuff. And you know, Ren wrote in and also said that she wished that it would have been nominated in other categories, other than the ones it's in. And yeah, so for me, like, I think it should have been up, especially. Oh my god, it's stop motion gameplay. Yes, the music. Oh my god, the music.
Phenomenal music.
But again, when we get to music, we'll have to see what's there, because I have other stuff which I think music, you know, music is a strong category again this year.
It's so strong.
It's strong. Moving on to innovation and accessibility, recognizing software and or hardware that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technologies, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience. This is a very good. I love that this award's always here, and it has its own part in the jury. There's a special jury specifically tailored like by people who work at places that deal with kind of accessibility, like even people like streamers and kind of content creators with disabilities help with this award. So it's always cool to see this. I personally don't know a whole lot. I do look at accessibility options sometimes, but because I typically 9 times out of 10 don't need to use them, I don't fully know what's included. The games that are included, Accessory Shadows, which is the only thing where it's got a nomination for, Atomfall, Doom the Dark Ages, EA Sports FC 26, and again South of Midnight. We were circling around something I said earlier. There's a game on here, which normally I said earlier I couldn't play, normally. Doom the Dark Ages, can't normally play it. However, it got my vote because of the 5, it is the only game which I needed to use accessibility options to actually play it. So this is the only game that I know personally as like a, hey, look, it helped me get through it, you know what I mean? It had a pretty decent stuff in like terms of like how you were able to customize, like even slowing the game down, like turning certain stuff on. So yeah, it got my vote just for that reason. I will say that I think personally Assassin's Creed Shadows will probably win it because Ubisoft is like a renowned for how its suite of options are. Like I remember always seeing just any Ubisoft game has like, they kind of copy and paste it almost in each game, but that's not a bad thing because it literally, you can tailor it however you want, but it has options upon options. And whilst I don't remember specifically looking at the Shadows ones, I think, because I know that's there, I remember seeing it briefly, I think that's probably what will win. But yeah, Doom gets my vote just because it is the one where I'm like, hey, look, it helped me personally, you know what I mean? So that's where my kind of vote lies, basically.
Yeah, I, again, unfortunately, did not personally play any of these games. So what was nice is when I was voting for the Game Awards, they do have a link now where you can learn about each game's accessibility options. So it does have them all written out for you, like what each game is doing in order to offer more accessibility. And I read through all of them, and I actually voted for South of Midnight again because out of all the options, that seemed to do the most. Everything else that was offered, I mean, Doom the Dark Ages, the fact that you can change the speed of projectiles, of enemies, of the entire gameplay, that's really, really cool. And obviously it does help even people who tend to not need accessibility options. Like the fact that those are there is awesome, for especially for such a fast-paced game. But South of Midnight seemed to offer much more of a variety of things that aren't just what I think the bare minimum. I no shade to any game, but the accessibility options that should just be offered as a minimum is what's being kind of highlighted. And South of Midnight really offered more and was able to, like, it seems like you will be able to truly customize your gameplay and be more accessible to more players than any of the other games. So I hope it gets the highlight here because I think it went above and beyond instead of doing what we should start considering is just the bare minimum with accessibility.
Yeah, South of Midnight really, really went above and beyond. Like they've have like little things just like the guiding strand that points you towards your objective, which is really cool. I ended up using it myself because I felt like I needed it. It was really, really, really helpful. But also, whenever it comes to like motor disabilities in this game, they have, it varies from, either you do the combat normally to all the way up to you can just skip the combat features altogether and have it be played out as just a story, and you just, you're moving around and everything. So the fact that they have that many different layers of accessibility, and there's a lot more too. Like you can even remove the stop motion if you're having, a bad time with that. There's just so much that they have added to it that is surpassing what I would consider as the bare minimum as well. That I feel like this just had to get my vote.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I forget that South Midnight is actually now part of Microsoft. And I think Microsoft has had for the last few years this big push behind trying to do more with inclusivity in terms of like disability inclusion. Like, I mean, they literally have that like class standard adaptability control for like people who are not able-bodied. And so like I was reading it briefly then, like talking about like motor kind of features, and so like to see all that kind of stuff, like I didn't realize that link was there, so I was just kind of skimming kind of through some of the options quickly. So I think Microsoft is one of those companies that will probably try to get a lot of its studios to make sure that they have these level of like inclusivity, like for disability and accessibility options, which is always a good thing. And I think, you know, people like to very much often take digs at Microsoft because of this, that, and the other. And so I think, you know, maybe we'll see South Midnight get that, and it'll be like, hey, don't always be very critical on, you know, the game. The game may not be perfect, but it has great options for people who want to try it out. You know what I mean? So, yes, it'll be nice to see what wins anyway. Because one thing I know that they always do is normally, at least, because some awards are on the night are like, they're like, hey, here's this, and they quickly list them off, and then are like, and it was this the one. I don't know if it's been all years, but I remember specifically in a few, I think it was 2020, 2021, one of them, but like it literally, when it went through the nominations for that, it showed like what was different, or like what you would do to make it be like accessible effectively, which was really cool to, you know, if people hadn't seen it yet, they were actually able to see like why it's nominated effectively, which I think it's nice to highlight that kind of side of it. So yeah, it'll be interesting what wins. Moving on to best performance now. now.
All right, we're back, baby.
The meat and potatoes. We're getting there.
The nominations of best performance are Ben Starr for Clair Obscur Expedition 33 even, which is, it doesn't say next to him, but I know who they are, so it's Verso. Fair enough, let's play the game. Charlie Cox, again from Expedition 33 for Gustav. Erika Ishii for Ghost of Yote for, I don't know the character's name, but main character. Jen of English for Clair Obscur Expedition 33 for Mael. Kanatsu Kato for Silent Hill F for, I've forgotten her name, but main character again. And Troy Baker for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle for Indiana Jones. Should there be half of the award nominated to one game?
If they deserve it. I mean,
yeah, they kind of deserve it. Normally you'd see this and be like, well, but then you realize what this is. You're like, oh shit, they actually all deserve to be here.
This is a personal thing. I mean, I talked earlier about how it was weird. Like last year, there's only 5 nominations and there was 6 this year. I think that what the Game Awards does sometimes, this is tinfoil hat, but stick with me. What the Game Awards often will do is have a celebrity like nominee, if that makes sense. Like a celebrity that's appeared in a game, kind of, they were like, it's like, hey, could we get Charlie Cox at our show? You know what I mean? And that's absolutely not to take away from his performance whatsoever. But you'll see that they often will do this to be like, hey, look at this person. I can't talk about why I again, his performance is great. He is the one that I would like to change up for someone else, and I can't talk about why without spoilers. I will say this, and again, this is not a slight against him at all, and you know, you could give the best performance ever in a game in 3 hours, but he's been very open about it. He's been very open. He's like, I came into this game, I did like 1 3-hour session and I was done. I would personally have liked to have seen someone else get nominated, just because, you know, ones that I literally, this was like the hot take that I put out on Twitter, and someone came at me but like, oh yeah, well, what would you suggest then? I was like, either leads for Split Fiction, the Hazel from South Midnight, again, I talking about earlier for Alex Jordan for The Alters. People even talk about, if we want another celebrity, where's Norman Reedus for Death Stranding? You know what I mean? There were other options. Aaron Paul for Dispatch. There were other things that I kind of wish maybe I would have seen. Like personally, for me, I would have preferred one of the leads of Split Fiction. Either or. If I was to say, I would say probably Zoe, which I know neither of you played it, so you wouldn't know who that is. But yeah, like I think for me personally, I think Jennifer English is probably gonna win it for Mayal anyway. So it's also then one of these things where it's like, okay, well, you have representation for this game twice already, and we know that she's probably gonna win it. So just give another game another nudge, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, again, it always sounds like hater speech when I talk about Claire Obscura, and I'm like, it's not necessarily. I don't agree with the things. It's like it's no, not at all. But yeah, I personally would have liked to just seen something else there, even if you're not gonna win it, if that makes sense. Um, but yes, his performance is great, but there are also other performances I would like to have had a spotlight on it. Do you guys think that Jennifer English is gonna win? Do you think Ben Starr's gonna win? Do you think someone else is gonna win?
Yeah, you go first.
Listen, I'm a Ben Starr fangirl, okay? Ben Starr is great, and
Same.
yes, his he is very recognizable in his roles. And I don't mean that as a dig. I think some people might say like, "Oh, Ben Starr is playing Ben Starr," like he is who he is. Like you can tell your Clives from your Versos, from your Prometheus. Like you hear it, it's Ben Starr. I do think he's fantastic and does deserve the recognition. Kanatsu Kato doing Hinako, I think honestly, I would love to see that recognition, because that game, as I did not play it, but I did watch people play, so that performance is absolutely top tier. And then I have also heard great things about Troy Baker in Indiana Jones, where people literally did not know that wasn't Harrison Ford. Like he was Indiana Jones, and Troy Baker is a very, very well decorated voice actor. So if he might be your celeb that you are getting as a win, like, because Troy Baker is just so recognizable. So
yeah, it's really just a hard one with all of these, because even like Erika Ishii, anything that they do, I absolutely love. They are amazing. So like seeing them get recognition for their performance, even though I, for spoiler reasons, haven't seen it yet, I am very excited that they have made it on here. But also, yeah, Ben Starr rushed it. Jennifer English is my vote personally, just because Mael is one of my favorite characters ever. I genuinely think that was just one of the best performances I've seen in a game personally. Also, to the point of Troy Baker, yeah, I even thought whenever I watched like the first trailers for the game, I thought they got Harrison Ford to do the voice, and then I found out later, no, it's Troy Baker. So I got duped, and I love that he was able to do that good of a performance. Um, Also, like this wouldn't have made this list, but I think an honorable mention to Andy Serkis for his performance in Expedition as well. Andy Serkis was phenomenal in that game. So if of all like the celebrity things, if like you wanted to take Charlie Cox out, I think slipping Andy Serkis in there could have also been very valid in this scenario as well. But I do think Jennifer English will probably take this, but I would not be shocked with any of them.
Then answer me this question, Sana. Do you think there should be 2 awards?
How so?
But I refer back to purely, it's like how when you have the Oscars, you have people typically look to the Golden Globes and all that to kind of see what wins. Well, there's an equivalent, I guess, in this industry with the Golden Joysticks happening, I think, like 2 weeks ago. The only difference between them is the Golden Joysticks is all like public voted, so it's kind of hard to get a read on that. But people look to that to be like, oh, is it leading towards this? What they do is they have best lead performer and best supporting actor or performance, which is again also what the Oscars do. So instead of there being, the Oscars do best lead actor, best lead actress, and then best supporting actor, best supporting actress. Would you like to see
I would love that.
A best supporting role and best lead performance? Because literally, go on.
I was going to say absolutely. Yeah, that would. I think that would help these a lot, because I mean, not all these are the main characters of the games. Some of them, of course, are, but like having one that's like, hey, you, the lead of the game, you are the best lead of this, and then having that supporting role as well, having both get recognition, so that way, there's plenty of people in each of these games. I would imagine that could have deserved to be put on here, but maybe the screen time wasn't as high. I think having that would be really good.
I do have a small counterpoint to that, though, because out of the 3 that are nominated for Expedition 33, if there is I'm obviously going to be vague for spoiler reasons. If you go by a particular metric, they are technically all main characters. How do you pick
True.
one? Who's the lead? Who's the supporting? Technically, all three of these would be eligible.
Let me
That is a
tell
very
you
valid counterpoint.
how the golden joysticks did it, because they did differentiate between them. So just to quickly, like, just to be like, oh, here's what, you know, here we had 6 here. Let me tell you the 12 that were nominated at the golden joysticks. For best lead performance, you had Jennifer English for Mayel, Troy Baker for Indiana Jones, Tom McKay for Henry in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, so the main character in that game.
Yeah.
Alex Jordan from The Alters, Erika Ishii for Atsu in Yote, and Adrian Ray for Hazel in South Midnight. They were deemed the lead performance. And then, for which Jennifer English won, just to also kind of put that out there. And then best supporting performer, Troy Baker again. Troy Baker was nominated for best lead and best supporting for his role as Higgs in Death Stranding 2.
Oh, right. Okay. I was like, what was he in as a support? Totally forgot.
Jim hires Eric in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, so I guess there's another kind of character. Ben Starr for Verso in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Lucy Griffiths for something called for Alva in something called Eric's Home, The Soul Dream. I've never heard of it. Logan Cunningham as Hades, Poseidon, Charon, Polyphemus, and Kronos, and the Storyteller in Hades 2.
Amazing.
All of them. And then Marius Gavrils as Emmerich Voss in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So
Nice.
I like that there was like a light shone on like all those performances. So I would personally like to see 2 awards. If you're gonna have like 2 awards for like other stuff like indie game, I think it's just nice to be able to like showcase more. But then like you saying, it's like, okay, well, how do you differentiate who is what? I think yeah, because for me, like personally, just kind of even just looking at it, like Mael, without saying why or what or Mael in Clair Obscur is the main character. But then again, even talking about the game, it's like, well, you can argue that Verso is, you know.
Yeah, it's hard. That's definitely a tough one. I would think Mael as well would probably be the lead one. So I think Joystick Awards, the fact they separated them the way that they did, I think they got that right. But also, like, I see the counterpoint of like they kind of all are in a way.
Also, I should say that Ben Starr did win Best Supporting Actor. So they actually end up both winning awards. Hence why we should also.
That's one way. That's what they did. They wanted them both to win, so they split it up. No.
But yeah, to go back to the main point, I stupidly, and I did it more of a content thing because of other people playing it in Japanese. I played Silent Hill F in English, so I didn't hear Kanatsu Kato's voice. But I've heard very good things. Like I said earlier, I think Jennifer English will win. I'll be happy if she wins, and I kind of want her to win. I think Mael is probably the best. However, I will hope Walla scream my ass off if Ben Starr does win, because I think he should have won for Clive in Final Fantasy 16. No shade to Neil Newbin for Astarion, but like that Final Fantasy 16 was like one of my games of the year that year. And Ben Starr just as a person, like, I mean, I'm just saying, Ben Starr, you're making me a bit weak at the knees.
We love Ben.
I love Ben Starr.
We love Ben.
So yeah, I would be incredibly happy if he wins. But no, I do think it'll probably be Jennifer English, which is also incredibly well deserved, and I would be happy regardless. Yeah. Well, hold on. Here's who wants to place a bet right now. Will Charlie Cox appear in the audience?
Probably not. Probably not.
Probably not.
He also did say recently.
He probably.
Oh, go on.
I was gonna say he probably won't even realize that he's up for a nomination for a game because he almost didn't know he was in a game. You know.
Yeah, I think he is aware. Just because I think someone brought up to him, but and he said he's very valid. But and one thing that I will say, which I love, that when you see Charlie Cox talk about this in interviews, he said that whilst he is honored, he thinks that the person mocap actor for Gustav deserves all the recognition that he would also get. Which, fun fact, if you don't know, the person that is the French, I think he's also the French performance for Gustav, but he is the capture artist, is the same person that plays Esquier. So
Max
there is and Charlie Cox knew him by name as well. He said his name in like the interview. And I was like, he knows what he cares to know. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I love Charlie Cox. So yeah, like even though I kind of don't want him to be nominated, I do love him, and I love like hearing him talk about this game. And maybe we'll get him there. Maybe we'll see. Well, there'll be a moment there where Ben, Jennifer, and Charlie all get on the stage and present an award together, and we're all be like, "Whoa, they're all together!"
That'd be sick. I'd be down. I'm on board. That could happen.
Yep.
That's fine. Yeah.
I want it.
Moving on though, best audio design. So recognizing the best in-game audio and sound design, you got Battlefield 6, Clarity got Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2 on the beach goes to Yote, and Silent Hill F. This is the one I will say where I personally think that Clarity might not win. I think this is also, and then again, do not hate. This is the one where I feel like I think about like that game. You know, the soundtrack incredible. We'll get to it. But I'm like, what does the audio design in Clair Obscur do that potentially other games in this category might not do better? You know, Battlefield 6 its design is built a certain way. It's known as being a leading kind of, like, they take their time with that for like shooters. And so like, I know that's maybe incredibly good. Silent Hill F relies on audio design for a horror game, which is also what I voted for, having also played it, and I think might actually have the chance of winning here. But I've seen a lot of people talk about Death Stranding 2 as well. So yeah, I think of all the awards where Clair Obscur might get beaten by something else, I think this is the one. Unless you guys, yeah, what do you guys think about that? Because I'm thinking about Expedition 33. I'm like, what's the audio design where it's like, oh yeah, this is what amazing for, you know what I mean? Like I'm like I can't pick anything out personally from what I remember about Expedition 33 where I'm like sound design, you know what I mean? Aside from its soundtrack kind of thing.
There's a few I'd probably spoil if I said too much of it. But there's definitely a few situations, where of course audio design, there's no music involved in this. It's all just like the gameplay stuff, what happens at the cutscenes, like that kind of thing. And sometimes whenever they just drop the music and they just throw just some thumps at you, and you are immersed. You are locked in. I hope you got what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I know.
Act one. If you played it. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. That, like, just those in general, and they throw stuff like that in quite a bit over the course of the whole game, and it's just like the little things that I think that they did flawlessly. Like, they could have had no music in the game, which we'll talk about their soundtrack and how amazing that was. But if they had dropped all that and just went straight off their audio design, amazing. Battlefield, of course, they're as far as like shooters go, they're like the cream of the crop when it comes to audio design. Nothing really touches it. So this being here does not surprise me. I can't really comment on the other ones because I haven't played them, but I do know from my experience, at least from the first Death Stranding, that they absolutely crushed the audio design in that. I don't know if they won an award for it. They may have, they maybe not. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. So I'm not shocked to see it here. I just don't have a dog in the race on that one because I haven't seen any of it, I haven't heard any of it, haven't played it. But Clair Obscur was my vote here for sure.
I will say that out of this category, this would probably be Clair Obscur's weakest nomination out of all of them. I will say, in terms of combat, the audio cues are integral to your parry and dodge system. So all of that being there, I think it is still a pretty strong contender. I think Battlefield, having the Battlefield name and actually being really, really great at audio design, might carry that to a win in this. I do know that the other 3 games do have great audio design as well, just from what I've seen, because again, I haven't played them. But I think Expedition 33 has more than maybe we give it credit, but I would also say it's its weakest category, and I think Battlefield might be the front runner here.
If Claire's going to lose anywhere, I think this is probably the spot it will.
Yeah, I think, like I was saying, I think for me personally, I think it will be Silent Hill F. I want it to be Silent Hill F because, again, horror games kind of rely on audio cues and to kind of get you to kind of have that atmosphere, and like not even like all jump scare, like that game had like such an atmosphere, like, you know, hearing like squelchiness and kind of like, you know, the way that wild, like, you know, trees like rustling and just kind of keeping you on edge and all that kind of stuff. I would like to see a Silent Hill F win for that. You asked if it, or you said you're not sure if Death Stranding won. I can tell you this: that year, Sekiro, this is what was up in 2019 when it was nominated. Sekiro, Resident Evil 2, Gears 5, Death Stranding, Control, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Call of Duty Modern Warfare won. So if history repeats itself on a shooter winning, then Battlefield might just do it.
I don't hate that for that year's of that year Call of Duty actually was like, that was the last one that actually kind of nailed it. So I'm not surprised on that one. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Battlefield, honestly. That wouldn't shock me.
I also looked over during that and saw that Death Stranding won for best score in music. So to transition over, best score in music. No, but the reason I say that Death Stranding won it. Death Stranding 2 is also up. However, as has been alluded to a few times, the other things that are nominated for best score in music this year include Hollow Knight, Silk Song, Hades 2, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Ghost of Yotei, and Death Stranding 2. Yeah, we want to discuss it.
Stacked.
Yeah, this is stacked, and even how stacked it is, I know this is biased for me. As stacked as this soundtrack, this whole score in general is for all of this whole category, I still think Expedition wins in a wide margin for me. It's the best soundtrack I've heard in any game. Just even starting from the menu music. Just once you first open the game, you're like, oh my god, this is how we're starting. And then, you know, not any spoilers, but the music in the prologue, fucking amazing. And like it just gets better. Like they just picked the best music for the best spots in the game, and it's just, they nailed it. I have no negative things to say about this at all. Really, I mean, most of these games are awesome, but just this Expedition nailed it. It blew it out of the water for me. I haven't played a game that had a soundtrack like this ever.
What about you, Jazzy?
Amazing. I also cast my vote for Expedition 33. I will say, out of all of the games, if anything else wins, it's honestly the rest of the categories in this. I would say I want Expedition 33 to win. However, if any other game wins it, I'm happy because they're all very deserving. I know Death Stranding is obviously well-known series for its music. I will sit there and just listen to music in Hades 2 when I'm playing, so I love that as well. Ghost of Yotei, I know Ghost of Tsushima's soundtrack was just phenomenal, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. Silk Song might be my weakest out of this entire category, just because I really haven't heard much, but I mean, I'm also potentially biased because one of my top listened songs of the year was Lumiere. So I do think it's still the strongest contender out of here. It's gonna hopefully be
it's funny. I finished my Spotify Wrapped the other day. I ended up pulling it open, and Lorient to Start was my #1 listened to artist on my Spotify Wrapped. So if that goes to show just how much I loved this too, like I loved.
It goes to show you can be on SoundCloud and still do great things. It can happen to anybody.
I can't believe Huntrix wasn't at the top of your listen to. Come on now, what happened?
It was up there.
2, 3, 4, 5, but #1 was Lumiere. I'm not kidding.
For me, I'm with you on what you said, Jazzy. I'm not gonna be mad at anything winning here. I know. Let's not even say I think. I know that Clair Obscur is gonna win. But I think as much as I love that soundtrack, it's one of those things, right, where it's like, you know, music's such a thing of you listen to kind of what you'd vibe with, kind of what you'd like listen to on a daily. Clair Obscur is not personally for me that music that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna listen to that on the daily. But Hades 2 is. Like in terms of like, I guess my taste, you know, taste is different. And I love an operatic score, don't get me wrong. But I want to be kind of in the mood to like be listening to that. I want to be like, yeah, I'm gonna listen to, I'm gonna I'm gonna listen to my French music.
Somebody get a baguette and get him out of here, please.
Somebody
yeah.
/ ban Ryan Uzo.
I think Hades. I think one of the things that also just, contributes to Hades being my personal game of the year is its music. Like like just the background noise, or the background like soundtrack. But like when you get to bosses and like Coral Crown and all that kind of stuff, and like I remember watching the credits and like if you anyone's played Hades 1, they'll know like In the Blood and like that being like a freaking point at the credits, you're like, oh, and I got to this in this one, I was like, oh. So like I've listened to Time Belongs to Us I don't know how many times at this point, but I also say at least it's funny because Silk Song's the other one for me as well, where I couldn't even, someone could play a Silk Song or just a Hollow Knight song and I wouldn't know that it's Hollow Knight. And so I've literally talked to people who play these games, and like people are like, oh yeah, the music in Hollow Knight is like really known, it's for being good, blah blah. But I personally can't like even really touch on it because I don't know it. You know what I mean? I don't know what it sounds like. But like I said, I started Death Stranding 2, and the song it's like a song that was like wasn't written for the game, but like it was included. And Kojima does it really well, where he collects music right and puts in the game. And I remember playing the beginning and being like, oh, I got goosebumps already. Like, just the music I was playing. I was like, holy crap. And again, it won the last time it was up. So, could that be? No, it's Claire Obscure. The Claire Obscure's going to win it.
It didn't have Claire Obscure to go up against. So that's,
But no, bro, if I'm sat here on the night and this comes up and something else is revealed, I will be... I'll be like, oh, what? There'll be outrage amongst the internet. The internet will go down.
I'll be part of the riot. Don't worry.
I mean, also, I'm pretty sure that's the only one in the upcoming year that has literally a tour dedicated to its music, which the London show sold out within minutes, and people are mad because bots got the tickets. So yeah, I think it's a lock-in, honestly, probably. We shall move on to Best Art Direction. So for Outstanding Creative and/or Technical Achievement in Artistic Design, you have Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yote, Hades 2, and Silk Song. So it's the same 5.
Oh, goodness.
This is an interesting one. Because I think... I mean, Claire Obscure will win it, probably again. And I think it deserves to. That the kind of, like, artistry kind of meant to be look like a painting for the sense of the story and all this kind of stuff as well. I think it works so well. And I think one thing that like the other games are also look incredible. Like Death Stranding, people think might be like the potential second. But one thing the other 4 have against them is they're all sequels. And so this style has been seen already. Like Hades 2 looks fantastic, but we've still it in Hades 1. Hollow Knight, Silk Song, we saw it already, but that's not necessarily a slight against it fully. But it's not new. It's not like whoa, I mean, to some people it might be. It's cleaned up for sure, but it's something that has already been experienced in that in a franchise sense. That I think with Expedition 33 being something so like different, I think that has kind of the for sure. I mean, it's my vote. It's my personal vote. Because again, whilst Hades is my game of the year, I'm like. Saw that before. It's no longer red, it's now green, but we've seen it before. So, like, yeah, I would vote for Expedition 33 for sure.
Yeah, I do think the fact that the other nominees in the category are sequels, so they are building on what we've already seen, which is, again, not a slight at all. But I think one thing that Expedition 33 has for it in this particular category is like it's almost like the Elden Ring effect with all of like because I think Elden Ring won this because specifically like the enemy design and things like that. I do think because of the versatility of all of the things you end up encountering in this beyond just that, like that's going to play a huge part. So I do think Expedition's probably a pretty big front runner in this. Though again, if anything else wins, I'm not mad about it. They're all good.
Yeah, I'm different a bit from the crowd on this one. as much as okay, I love Expedition 33's art. Like it's so good. I I personally am going Hades 2 here. I know it is just an add-on. I mean, it's essentially, we've seen it. We've seen Hades. I just love this art style so much. I do prefer its art over Expeditions, even though by a very slim margin. It's I don't know. I like it a little more, so I gave it the nod.
That's fair. Right, if you look, if you hadn't seen my face, I'm like, why is he pulling all these faces? I went back and like out of curiosity looked at like what won art direction in the last few years. So last year it was Metal Red Fantasio, which yes,
Oh yeah.
2023 because I looked specifically at 2023 to begin with because I was like, oh, that's the year that Elden Ring came out. I was like, no, it's 2022. I was like, oh, okay, but best art direction that won that year, Alan Wake 2, which is kind of one of those like photorealistic, like look over Hi-Fi Rush, over Tears of the Kingdom, and over Super Mario Wonder. So like that kind of the hyper realism almost, or like the graphical like high fidelity of it, won out against things that you might think would win. The reason I pulled a face is because yes, Elden Ring did win in 2022. But if anyone knows the game Scorn, that game was also up for best art direction, and if anyone knows me, they know I do not like Scorn. And so
that is kind of weird that was up there for art direction, because specifically the art of Scorn turned me away from playing the game.
Yeah, it's gross.
That is kind of funny that got up there.
Hey, it just says outstanding. It doesn't say good or bad, just outstanding.
True.
You know?
I like the way you think.
There was flashy things. Anyway, moving on. Best narrative. So outstanding storytelling and narrative development in the game, you got Expedition 33, Death Stranding, Ghost of Yotei, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and Silent Hill F. I really want to talk about Clair Obscur and its story, but I will withhold for spoiler reasons. I of the 5, I've only played 2 of these to completion to like be able to be like, oh, this. So whilst I do have issues with it, I did vote for Clair Obscur. However, what made me laugh, because I personally, for me, once I finished Silent Hill F, I was like, what was the story? I was confused. What was happening? However, I had a lot of people being like, whoa, I'm so happy this is here. It so deserves it. And I'm like, did we play the same game? Like, I enjoy Silent Hill F, but I'm like, for me, its story was almost like its weakest element. And so, like, I guess it's down to interpretation. And like Silent Hill games are always kind of like that. But yeah, I was like, oh, okay. I think Clair Obscur will win it, because whilst I do have issues with that story in certain aspects, I still enjoyed it massively. And I think one of the reasons I have certain elements which kind of made me feel iffy about that game was because I was so invested already, if that makes sense. And so I think it is incredibly strong, to the point where I was like, I'm now mad at this game because of what you did. Both as a narrative and also as a narrative structure thing. Thank you very much. So yeah, I would vote for Expedition 33.
Yeah, my vote definitely went to Expedition 33. Part of my highlight of it was the fact that I would get to certain points of the game and I would want to stop and digest everything that I learned and try to theorize about what was coming next. And being either like, oh my gosh, yes, I was right. I can't believe I'm right. Or, oh my God, I was wrong. How was I wrong about this? How did they do this? So for me, that was just, even if like some of the stuff, again, some of the decisions, maybe it's like, oh, I wasn't happy with them doing this. The fact that they could still potentially subvert what we were trying to anticipate out of that story, I think is a strength and really good storytelling. However, I would say Death Stranding 2 could be a good contender. I haven't heard much about Ghost of Yotei's story, but I've also been actively avoiding that, so I don't know how strong of a contender that is. I do think Silent Hill F deserves the recognition for the storytelling, because it is very purposely not like, it is not overt, but it's very present. I got so interested in learning about the story that I started reading into it because I don't do horror games. I'm not that person. But I got so interested in learning what this game was doing and what it was talking about and all the symbolism and what the story was actually trying to tell us through some very non-direct methods that I'm glad that it's here because I think it did a really good job.
Yeah, I only have experience with Expedition 33. I it is the only game I've played that is, I think, fully brought me to waterfall tears on multiple occasions, and not necessarily because of like, things that are sad that's happening. It's just such an emotionally moving story, and I absolutely loved it. I was hooked the whole way through, from literally the very, very beginning of the game all the way to end credits. I was just hooked, and I have not had a game before then or since then hook me as strongly story wise than this game.
I might be a heartless bastard that I didn't cry a single time during Expedition 33. I don't know.
I think if I were to go back in my VODs and like count the amount of
I
times
cried in the first hour.
yeah, no, say full waterfall the first hour. We're probably in double digits, like where I cried on stream, and I don't cry on stream. It was
Oh, I
probably
do.
double digits.
I got to a wheezy like sob, like people were telling me to breathe. I cried so hard.
I think I think of knowingly and of remembering, I think I've cried twice at video games. I won't go into details, but Walking Dead season 1 and
Yes, oh my God.
Never, if anyone's played Never. But that was more of an emotional response because it's to do with animals and I was still dealing with trauma, I think. So it got, I think when something can connect, I can connect something on that kind of side of it. I think that's what like gets me, if that makes sense. And then I cry about them revealing Mass Effect, the new one, as a trailer. So yeah, like gaming, I don't know, it's weird because I also don't like cry a lot at movies. Like there's some things I think that just get me more than others. But yeah, I was watching so many other people, like Mochi recently just finished, so I was like watching her finish, and like I'm there like, oh, I'm like almost getting more emotional watching other people get emotional about it, if that makes sense. And I'm there like, okay. You know what I mean? So it was like, not to that extent. It was still sad. I was still like sad at. I can't talk. I can't talk about it. But all I'm gonna do is this. You know what I'm on about in Expedition 33. Hold on, hang on. You know what I'm on about. You have yeah, and then they go. That's my dramatic thing about kind of obscure.
What's funny is everyone knows exactly what you're talking about if they played it. So.
But yeah, it was still sad, but I wasn't like, you know what I mean? I was just like, oh.
And I was over here like sobbing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
You know what I found recently? It's really weird. I get like, not to the point where I'm like crying, but I get really emotional watching people like react to like epic moments. Like one thing that I this is I'm sorry, I'm all of a sudden just sidetracking. But like for example, watching people react to watching the end of like Avengers Endgame, like the portal scene. Like I'm there, like 'cause I think I attested like what my emotions were at that point, and then they're watching people like getting hyped, and then they're like, like I get like choked up almost. It's weird. I don't know why. It's just weird for me. Okay, we got 2 awards left to go. Best game direction, awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. You have Cloud Pursuit Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei, Hades 2, and Split Fiction. Which again, Split Fiction is actually nominated for quite a lot of stuff, but not Game of the Year. Have you guys kind of got an opinion on what you think might win just for like direction specific sense?
Yeah, I still win Expedition here. I don't think it's as runaway as it is in other categories that it's in. I honestly, I could even see. I know Split Fiction. I think would probably hit this from everything I've heard about it. The Hades 2, I could absolutely see as well from what I've played. But I was like, well, I know the direction is amazing in Expedition, so I went that route.
I obviously also voted for Expedition 33. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Death Stranding 2 takes this,
Mm.
actually. So, as much as I would like, Hades 2 to get more recognition, even Split Fiction, the fact that it's gotten quite a few nominations, but seems to really just be flying under the radar for a lot of the discussion. It'd be cool if it got it. But as I think Expedition 33 is still on that sweep for a lot of things, but I wouldn't be surprised if like Death Stranding 2 got it.
I think for me, I don't know. This is like one of the ones where I'm like the most kind of unsure because it's like okay, well, Expedition 33 is there, so probably. But this is where I think when you know who's behind the game, you can kind of see more of it in not even if you've played it, but like Hideo Kojima is such a known name, you can see his fingerprints all over freaking Death Stranding 2. Same with Josef Fares, like all like if you know Split Fiction stuff, like if you know his like work and kind of how he is, like you can see him in that game. You know what I mean? And so I think personally for me, I vote for Split Fiction because I think mine like his, you can see it and like how that game works, and it's very hard now knowing that you also haven't played It Takes Two to like talk about it, and like I think once you've played those games, you'll like see like it's just like whimsical, and it's kind of like, and how it like connects through gameplay, like the gameplay of those games is like fun and like works together as like a co-op thing. And so like for me personally, I would love to see a Split Fiction win it from that side of it, which I think also means that it could have a chance. But I also kind of think it might be Kojima because it's Kojima. You know what I mean? Like not even necessarily to say like who he's gonna get because it's him, but Death Stranding is so him. From what I've heard about Death Stranding 2, it kind of just it improves massively on the success of the first one. And so I think the first one won quite a lot of stuff back when it first came out, and this one just has been reviewed better. So I think it can. I mean, like someone like Claire Obscure, I don't know the main like director of that game, and it doesn't have to be known who they are to like understand kind of where the innovation and all that kind of stuff came from. But I think that game, is so gorgeous and kind of how it's presented as well. Anyway, that it has a chance, and again, all five of them do. But yeah, I wonder if the kind of more known creators have a more of a potential advantage here on that kind of side of it. If people are thinking about like what it means, if that makes sense. But no, it's another one where I'm like, I don't know. I'm unsure. This is the year.
You can never rule out Kojima.
No, it's just like, yeah, this is the year where even like thinking what's gonna win, I'm the most lost I've ever been, basically. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's like I would like to see this win. This also deserves to win, or this, or that. Everything is just stacked, and it's like there's very few categories where there is a actual front runner where I would say like 80% of people would agree, yeah, that's number one. It's very split because everything's really good.
Okay, time for the big one. The game of the year.
It's fun.
You have Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silk Song, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Is this as clear cut and paste as everyone says it is?
I want to say yes,
Yeah, I want to say yes.
but I feel like maybe it's not. It could be. It could be as, clear cut as saying, look how many categories Claire Obscure Expedition 33 got nominated for and are very likely to win. How does that not make it game of the year if it checks so many of these boxes and will potentially win those to say that it is and the best experience from this year? However, we have so many other games that are in those same categories multiple times, so it's kind of anybody's game, maybe, but I do still think Expedition 33 has an edge and is the favored to be Game of the Year.
And I think really out of all the game of the years that I can think of, this is probably the most stacked group that we've had of nominees. And even then, I still think that Claire Obscur is probably going to take the cake here. But all of these games deserve to be here. There's even games that aren't here that I feel like deserve to be here too. But like, if I had to pick another game that, like, say Claire is going to lose to anybody, I think Hades 2 could be that game. But they're all just such great games that have come out. I know what I just said, like, you can't rule out Kojima. I don't see it beating Claire or Hades. I don't see it. I love Kojima. He's one of my favorites of all time. I don't see that one taking it, but yeah, I don't see anything winning but Claire in my eyes.
It's one of those weird ones because it's funny because I've said this since the middle of the year when everyone's like, it's so obvious, it's so obvious. I'm like, let's let all these other games come out. Let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think people still are standing by and on Claire Obscur, which of course, but I think it's, you know, like you just said, Santa, it's like this is the most like cutthroat year in terms of like, oh my god, like it could in any other year it could be any of them kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Genuinely, like any other year, I could see any of these other 5 games winning Game of the Year for sure. Yeah, just Claire, so good. And I was one of those people, like, once I finished, like, this is gonna win, this is clear cut, nothing else is gonna get close. But now, like, now that we're at the end, I'm like, oh shit, actually, well, Hades was awesome, and I know Silk Song people really, really loved, and like, you start to look back at it, like, now that we're here, I'm like, okay, well, it wasn't as clear cut as I thought it was.
I think it's one of those weird things, right? Because like I've said all night, Hades 2 is my game of the year personally. Just in terms of like, which is kind of like in terms of like everything, in like gameplay wise at least. However, if we look at it, we zoom out even more. Like Expedition 33 is the game of the year in terms of like how good it is, how much it's talked about. You know what I mean? Like it's the thing which it entered out of nowhere seemingly, not necessarily fully out of nowhere, because I remember when it got announced last year during Xbox's like 2024 like E3 time thing, and I was like, looks like a Lost Odyssey, I'm in because I love that game. And then like seeing it kind of progress, and I remember at the beginning of the year being like, when they showed it during the developer direct, I was like, oh, it still looks like it's running a bit iffy, so I hope it does well, but I'm not sure. And then it came out, and then boom, from there, everything, you know what I mean? And so it's funny because yeah, like my personal game of the year, Hades, but I probably would vote for Expedition 33 just because it, like I said, it's the game of the year. But it's like, if we look at those scores, Hades 2 is scoring higher. And so I'm like, oh, I'm getting giddy. There's a chance my game wins.
I do think Hades 2 unfortunately has a little bit of the it was hanging out in early access and is already kind of known before this. So now that it's out in its full 1.0 release, even though again, I love Hades 2, I've spent many an hour in it, and I do think it's a great game. I think it's unfortunately going to get a little bit overlooked in terms of game of the year.
I think it's one of those things where I agree with you completely on that fact, because I think maybe because Silksong came out just before it, but I've said like Hades 2 came out and the people that played it, loved it, talked about it. Not a whole lot, but like I feel like the buzz wasn't there for Hades 2 when it came out. Like it came out and it was like, okay, there it was. Here are the high review scores. But I think back to 2020, and I think Hades 1 had the same kind of thing, because Hades 1 also was early access. It had that kind of similar pathing. However, I think what then kind of catapulted a lot more was actually after the Game Awards. Like I said earlier about how the Game Awards helped platform certain games, I think more people started to learn more about Hades at that point, because the annoying thing about Hades as well is it's a Switch exclusive for consoles at least, and it's like, that really hindered you. And then I also found out after the fact that it was the same for Hades 1 again. So it's like, will we see kind of a upswing of people talking about it potentially after the awards show? I mean, if it wins awards, then of course, but like if it doesn't, it's like, oh, there's that game. I think
Especially if we get maybe an announcement such as getting it on other consoles.
hopefully. I hope. It's like, why is it only on the Switch? I mean, I own it on the Switch, but still. I want to buy it physically on my Xbox, please. I think for me, it's between Clair Obscur, Hades, and probably Death Stranding. I think are the three. Like, that one's like, you have these two together, and Death Stranding's like here, and everything else is just, what are you saying? You know what I mean? Like, down there kind of thing. But yeah, I think it will be Expedition 33. I will not be shocked if it is. I will literally scream if Hades 2 wins. And there'll be many angry people, I'm sure, in many chats being like, what the fuck? It's rigged. But yeah, I think Expedition 33 will win it. And I'll be very happy when it does.
Yeah, my second would probably be Death Stranding 2. I think we shouldn't discount it as being a potential. Silk Song, I will say, I think maybe just the sheer difficulty of that game is also working against it. The fact that so many people, like, that's what you hear a lot of, is how difficult that game is, which kind of undercuts a lot of what the game is about, because that kind of dictates the conversation about that game. Is like, they essentially had to nerf it because it was so difficult. So as much as I think everyone it was super stoked on Silk Song, the fact that it just got shadow dropped, the fact that it exists at all is huge. I think it does have quite a few things that are kind of working against it to let it be a Game of the Year winner. So Expedition 33, you got my heart, but I would not be surprised if Death Stranding 2 takes it. And I would also probably scream if Hades 2 wins, because that would be amazing too. Like, holy heck, how, Poor Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm sorry we didn't talk about you, even though you're here.
Yeah, so some of the songs just like, oh, I haven't played it. I know people love it. I know people are pushing for it. Like, I know when it got announced or it was in there, people were like, oh my god, you know what I mean? I kind of wish it was Split Fiction, but I have it. I still need to play it at some point, but I love Donkey Kong. Don't
I
get
think
me
Donkey
wrong.
Kong's the weak. I know, but I think it's the weakest one in this category, I will say.
I think it's a strange one because, it's one of those ones where, like, playing in that moment, incredible. The ending of that game, or like the last hour, holy shit! Like, one of my gaming moments of the year. Like, it's like, ooh, it's just fun. That last hour, I don't want to say too much, but it's like, yo. But yeah, like, I'm like, what did it really do? Like, the worlds are cool, like the destructibility is cool, but like, the story is very A to B, and the worlds, once you've kind of smashed a lot of stuff, you're like, okay, I've done that. Like, the when you get the new, like, power-ups, that's, like, cool, and you get all that. And when the music comes through with those power-ups, oh my god. I read it in my notes, but I forgot to mention, where's the music nomination for Donkey Kong? Please and thank you. So yeah, I that's why, like, I think when I thought about that alongside, like, Split Fiction, I was like, oh, I realized which one I prefer, kind of thing, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's that thing I was talking about earlier where it's like, here's the Nintendo representative and here's the Sony representative, you know what I mean? Like, I remember there's a few years ago when Super Mario Wonder was nominated and everyone was like, what? What? You know what I mean? It's like, it was an okay game. I mean, we played it together for briefly, but it was like, yeah, it was like, people were like, I don't know why this is here. Excuse me, kind of thing. So I think the same thing kind of happened. But yeah. Expedition 33. Guys, we're nearly done.
Expedition 33.
But one thing that I want to briefly talk about once we are heading into, like, the last kind of final 15-20 minutes. The Game Awards are just, the awards are there. Cool. That's not what we're not watching for the awards, are we? We're watching for the reveals and trailers.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to see revealed, announced? What would, like, be your, like, dream kind of, if this was shown or announced, that you'd be like, I'm on the floor, I've passed away, I'm gonna cry? What would that be for you guys?
I'm not allowed to talk about the things because I'll jinx it, so I shouldn't say, because I know. Listen, Squeenix can only give us so much, so if I have to say anything, I would love news about Final Fantasy VII Part 3. It just, I can't. I can only talk about one Squeenix thing, and it can't be the other one because I will jinx it. So that's the one.
You heard of Kingdom Hearts 4?
Don't put it in the. We're never gonna get it now. I want it so bad, and I know it's not going to happen, so I'm not even going to get my hopes up. We're the new Copium. The Kingdom Hearts fans are the new Silksong fans.
Yeah, step aside, Silksong. What are you doing?
We adopted all of the clown makeup, so that's where we're sitting. So I can almost guarantee we're not getting Kingdom Hearts news. So I would love to at least get a little sprinkle of Final Fantasy. I'm also thinking that's very unlikely. Or Mass Effect. Mass Effect news would be
Don't
cool
even.
God, I would love Mass Effect news. That'd be great. But like the recent EA stuff, it's like I don't know if that's gonna happen. That I'm sad.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I know has been catching steam lately, and I mean, it's not necessarily like I would love to see this happen because I haven't really had experience in these games too much. But I've heard a lot of steam on Half-Life 3, which is a lot more than I have heard recently. Like the past, gosh, I don't know, probably like 5 or 10 years, it's been a lot of just like I hear a lot of just it's like the standard copium. Like, oh hey, I want this.
I was gonna say I would like to make an addendum. The Silksong Copium went split to the Kingdom Hearts fans and the Half-Life fans. They also
There
have
you
the
go.
Copium.
Half-Life is an interesting one because we did get Half-Life Alex, which I don't want to say too much about the game. I've also not played it, and I don't like Half-Life 2. I apologize if you like it. So I'm not fussed. But like, it teed up more to come than anything else has in any kind of recent times. It seemed like from what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there has been weirdly talk about Half-Life 3 in the last few weeks, as if something is stirring. Yeah.
Yes, since all the Steam stuff updates. One I've heard, and this is definitely like I don't believe this one, is that they are wanting to like drop Half-Life 3 with the Steam machine like at the same time. Like, I don't see that one happening, but I feel like maybe like that could get announced around that if it is something that actually is in the works.
It could
But
be.
it's something I've heard a lot more talks about lately than I have in the past few years, and I'm more acknowledging that it's happening than thinking it's going to happen. I'm just I see you, Half-Life peeps. The chatter is growing a lot more than it has been.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see if it does happen. I think for me, Mass Effect's obviously like, give me more. It's not out of the question because it literally was announced during 2020's Game Awards, so there is precedent.
I need it.
In terms of like, in terms of like games that either have never been announced or like we just haven't heard anything about in such a long time. Fable, obviously, I need more Fable.
Yes.
I probably not gonna happen because my guess is, considering that game was meant to come out this year, it got delayed at the very beginning, which means it must have been close-ish that they thought it was gonna come out. The Xbox normally held their like developer directs in January, so I think that's gonna be one of the lead games talked about at the beginning of next year. Persona 6 would be incredible to be announced. Like, there's rumblings about that. Yeah. Those are the things that kind of came to mind. In terms of like things that people like who wrote in thought, Ace thinks that we'll see some Zelda, maybe the Zelda movie trailer, considering we just saw the first stills of that. I'm personally not sure, just because I feel like because we've already seen the images and I think they have just started filming. I think it's a bit too soon. Also, Nintendo can be very hit or miss about if they show stuff. So I'm not sure. Ray is hoping for Kingdom Hearts 4. Get over it. Mari also actually wrote earlier about Half-Life 3. So
okay. I'm not the only one.
I agree with Jazzy about, I think I could be wrong here, but I think they did announce something about one of the Final Fantasy remakes like at the Game Awards in the last few years. Like Rebirth might have been announced there or like shown more prominently there. In terms of what I went back and looked at what got announced last year, there was a bunch of stuff, but I specifically picked things which either came out this year or that were like huge reveals, right? You had Dispatch, Night Rain was announced last year. Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, which is the new Naughty Dog game, so we might see more of that.
I would love more of that.
Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, Okami 2 was announced, Onimusha was announced, Rematch, Sonic Racing Crossworlds, Shadow Labyrinth, which is that weird like Pac-Man game, Split Fiction was announced at last year's Game Awards. Stranger Than Heaven, which is the brand new Yakuza like studio game coming out, and The Witcher 4 were all revealed at last year's show. So there was a lot. I think it's very safe to assume we're gonna probably see Resident Evil. Will they announce that? There's rumors about Leon being a second person. If that's true, then they might show that. Again, Onimusha, Okami were both shown. Maybe we'll actually get gameplay for Okami this time. Onimusha is probably getting close to release, so we might see that. But we might get a new Capcom reveal. Because Capcom, they did it with Monster Hunter as well. Monster Hunter was it was always at Game Awards, and then it was always at Summer Games Fest, and then it was always at opening game live in Gamescom. So like, they definitely have a relationship. So I think we'll definitely see something Capcom. Ubisoft have said that before the end of their financial year that they have 4 games to come out. Prince of Persia was one, the remake of The Sands of Time. It's been confirmed, I believe, that it will not be there. However, there has been long rumored been an Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag remake coming, and there is an unannounced game coming before the end of financial year. So could we see an announcement of that? Could we see a shadow drop of that? Like, I think, if that's something that's coming, that might happen. Clair Obscur, I don't know if it's meant to be getting any sort of like update. Could we see that? Mario Kart, maybe if Nintendo is it, Mario Kart might get its first update properly. We're like, yay, finally. But yeah, there's quite a few things that could be there. You got anything else you might think?
I don't have one that I think will happen. It's more one of like, it came to me while we were having all this discussion about it, and I'm like, okay, wait, this would be sick if this randomly got announced. But a new Infamous game is one I'm wanting for years. I loved Second Son. I loved the other ones as well. So more wishful thinking than anything. There's no info on that actually happening.
I can potentially give you information, but it's a downer thing.
No, I'm good. I'm all right. I'll wishful think.
I mean, it could be coming, but Sucker Punch has basically gone on record, because this has always asked them. It said, we are a one game at a time studio, and obviously the fact they've just released Yote, it means that if they are, then it'll be a while.
Yeah, actually, I wrote down a bunch of stuff that we know about, but we haven't heard of in a while, that I think it would be cool if we get more info. With 007 coming up, maybe we get a little bit more on that. We haven't heard Intergalactic since last year, so maybe we get more. You already mentioned Fable. Guys, remember Phantom Blade Zero? I would like to see more of that.
Oh yeah.
The fact that we're getting closer to Duskbloods, I feel like because we had Night Rain last year, maybe that's what FromSoft's gonna kind of focus on, is giving us more Duskblood stuff. What else? I do think we're probably going to get some Resident Evil. That seems very likely. Potentially info on the Expedition 33 update, which I believe is going to incorporate a new dungeon. So we might get info on that. Gears of War has something. Forza's got something. Maybe they give us more on the Mario movie, because maybe we'll not focus on actual games. Maybe they bring in the movie because that'll, bring in money. I want to know how much time Hideo Kojima gets, because him and Jeff are besties. So we'll see how much he talks.
I have missed the biggest thing. What have you got? One more thing, because I've just remembered I've missed the biggest thing.
We also haven't heard anything much from Santa Monica Studios in a while, so I would love it if we get something from them.
There is a rumored Egyptian pantheon God of War, so maybe they have said. Well, actually, let me circle back a second. We didn't talk about what's in the desert, and if you don't know what I'm on about, if anyone doesn't know what I'm on about, Jeff Keighley tweeted out about a week ago 3 words and a picture of some demonic-looking statue in the desert.
I'm looking this up. I don't know what this is.
People were like, what do these 3 words mean? People realized that basically if you put those 3 words into that What's 3 Word app, where basically it will give you a global pinpoint on a map, people went to the point and found the statue
It's in the Mojave Desert.
And so yeah, people have been there. They took pictures from. We only saw the pictures from one side. People went around the other side, and there was basically like something blossoming out the back of it. And people immediately jumped on. They think it's Diablo 4 DLC or just Diablo related. Some people thought because there was armor on there like Kratos, as well as a crocodile, that it meant Egyptian pantheon, God of War. Both have now come out, I believe, and said that it basically is not related to them. So that put a damper on that. I mean, it doesn't mean that they won't still be there in some capacity. You know what I mean? I like what I saw someone tweeted out basically being like, it's either gonna be Kingdom Hearts 4 like Half-Life 3 level of like hype of what this new game is, or like a reveal in the franchise, or it's literally just gonna be a tease for a mobile game, for which I will die because I can see that happening, because unfortunately at these shows there is a lot of like mobile game like pushing of like stuff. But yeah, I outside of the things that were thought it was gonna be, and then they were like, no, it's not, and I'm like, well, I don't know what it is now, but I do, I do want to see more of stuff. So yeah, it's a weird thing, but yeah, there's something. It's weird that you have this activation in the desert, and people went to it, and it's like, what is this? What's happening?
Well, I'm curious if it's gonna be like something brand new, or if it's just meant to get us hyped for something we already know about. Because I went on my own deep dive of like, okay, what do we know that's getting released that could be that vibe? Saros kind of matches the vibe, but we already know a lot about Saros. That's kind of the thing, is we had a really extensive gameplay trailer recently.
We might see more of
and
that
that already
as
has
well.
a date for like, yeah, so
Early.
that could be. And I'm like, it does kind of match the vibe, but I'm like, are we really doing this sort of weird thing and actively putting something in the desert for a game we already know about? I don't know.
It's in the Mojave Desert. It means it's going to be Fallout New Vegas 2. Clearly. That's what it means.
Clearly.
Yep, New Vegas too. It's happening. Totally are working on that.
We've been on for a while, and we've been talking for a while, so I want to quickly, one last thing before we wrap up. I would like to take this moment, if you have one, two, or maybe a few games that you have played this year, which came out this year specifically at least, that you were like, I kind of wish we didn't see nominated for much, or that you kind of wanted to shine a light on more. Because like for me, I wrote down 3. Actually, 2 of them did get at least 1 nomination. In terms of like, I wish people would play these games, or like at least go look at them. Ball Pit, which people did talk about, so it's not like it's like underappreciated, but it's one of those games where I saw it, the gameplay looked really cool, but like once you play it, you're like, oh my god, this is really cool. The Rogue Prince of Persia, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically a rogue-like Prince of Persia style game. The gameplay in that game, in terms of like the wall running and kind of parkour systems, it's really fun. If you kind of like Hades, and kind of, you know, it's made by the same developers who made or they worked on the DLC for Dead Cells, so there's like an attachment to that kind of. And then also Shinobi, which again I talked about earlier, but it's one of those games that kind of float under the radar because it's like a digital exclusive. I think there is a disc, but like, you know, Sega don't always push their stuff that much. And then one which I was meant to talk about just as an art direction thing, not necessarily, I mean, it's a game I recommend, but Keeper, I was surprised did not get a nomination for art direction, because that game is also it's like a painting kind of thing. And that game also actually massively surprised me. I'm not gonna say why, because part of the surprise to me was when you're playing. It's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And you know what they all have in common? They're all available on Game Pass, so this is not a plug, but if you have Game Pass, there's one thing I wrote next to this, is if you have Game Pass, or if you have even PlayStation Plus, or something that has like services that has these kind of games on it, like use your time to just go and check out a game which you may not have never thought would be for you. Because, you know, you're paying for the services. You may have bought it just to play Expedition 33, for example, right? It's like, you have time still, maybe? Then try these other games out. Why not? Give it a go. You know what I mean? So, yeah, they're the games I want to kind of be like, hey, look at this. Well, you guys?
Good question. I kind of played very few games because I play games very slow. So that's kind of a toughie for me, in that I don't really have much outside of what has been talked about that I would want to highlight. I'd have to really dig deep in the brain. So I don't know if Santa has anything.
I mean, we have gone over it, but I feel like it could have had a little more love was Night Rain. I've put more hours into that game than any other game this year. I genuinely I love that, but I totally get like it's not quite to like the caliber of these others massive games that have come out this year. But like a little bit more love for Night Rain I would have enjoyed personally.
I'll flip the question for you if it makes it a little easier. Is there a game that came out this year which you have either not really thought about playing until you saw something, or if there's just a game where you're like, oh, now that I may have a bit of time, or now that I've taken 6 months to finish this one game, that I'm like, I'm gonna start this next, or I really want to look into this more? Because like you said about Silent Hill F, right? Like you don't do scary games, but you wanted to read like kind of the lore and stuff. So like, is there like certain games that came out that have like piqued your interest? You know what I mean?
I was gonna say, what was the cutoff date for games to be considered again?
November 14th, I believe. I mean, if you have a game which is like slightly over
know,
that, just talk about it. You know what I mean? We don't mind.
I'm guessing that it's probably because of that, but Where Winds Meet took off. It was
Oh
released on
yeah.
Steam on the 14th. So that could be the reason why it's not included here. But if that's the case, I would be very surprised if we don't see Where Winds Meet um, come about quite a bit next year and be talked about, because that game has just absolutely blown up and been huge and has gotten a lot of traction. So that actually, like, so many people played it and talked about it that I spent a long time downloading it so I could give it a try because that game is large, but it is
Mhm.
visually stunning and really interesting. So um, that would be my thing. Where Winds Meet. I'll be surprised if we
I
don't see more about it.
I just now thought of one because it's one I haven't played yet, but I've been meaning to and wanting to, and I do love this series. But Mafia: The Old Country.
Yes,
That's
yes.
one that I absolutely would love to play. I just haven't gotten around to it. And this was not talked about in any of these. Like this was not brought up at all.
Yeah, it was unfortunately one of those games that, like, again, going back to review, I think it was reviewed in like the mid 70s. Like, it looks insane, it looks incredible. Like, I've had the stories really good. I've heard it's pretty fun to play, but I think certain elements of it would like not stand out enough for them to kind of be like, we, you know, push it more. It's funny because that's one of those games that having not, you know, I don't have a lot of money to like just buy game after game after game, so I often will be like, okay, I'll wait until this is cheap, or I'll wait until this is like, I can go trade some stuff in and get it. That and like Metal Gear Solid Delta, which actually again wasn't even nominated for anything, are like games that I'm like keeping an eye on to be like, I can go get that now. So yeah, you say that's a game that's like, I'm like, I want to play this, please, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's on my short list for sure.
But yeah, that's that I was just like, whoa, I forgot about that game.
Yeah, it just came to me whenever I don't know, I started to think of other games. Like, what have I not played this year that I want to, but also we haven't talked about? It's like, oh wait, Mafia.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think in a busy year and a stacked year, there's a lot of games that were like quite close to the surface that quite didn't manage to get their head through because it's so like stacked.
Mhm.
You know, it's been a good
So we're
year.
probably missing quite a bit.
I'm sure we are.
So.
But no, guys, we're gonna call it there. 3 hours in. I said we would get to 3 hours, and here we are. Guys,
Damn,
Sana,
we hit it.
Jazzy, thank you for the conversation. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Guys, what have you got coming up? What can you say? What do you want to say as we leave?
Jazzy, you first.
Me? Okay. I don't know what to say. But I'm excited for more Expedition 33 content when we do get that. That'll be really cool. A reason to get back into that game. Speaking of Ben Starr, I'm going through Final Fantasy 16 because that game is a masterpiece. I'm super excited about that. And I'm also loving the Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. So I'm hopefully going to be finishing that game up soon. So I was a big fan of that. It's been a good year for games, that's for sure.
It has.
Mm-hmm.
And next year looking stacked as well. We haven't even talked about that, and we'll save that for another time because it's insane.
Yeah.
Sana, what's going on for you?
For next year's podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just wrapped up Outer Worlds 2 yesterday. I had been doing that for literally since release day. That's the only game I had been streaming. But now we're gonna get back into the Liza P DLC on future Sundays. I will be getting back into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to try and make some sort of a dent in all the Final Fantasy games that we're trying to do. Going through 1 through 16, which is quite the undertaking, and has taken me already 2.5 years to get to Rebirth. So that's taken me a good while. And then we're going to be getting into Metaphor and all of the Persona games as well. So that is kind of what the docket looks like going forward for quite a while.
My metaphor pop final right next to me on hand easily enough, so you know.
Hey, perfect.
Oh my god, I'm so ready. But no, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you so much for hanging out, guys. Please go follow Jazzy and Sana wherever they may be. And yeah, we're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna wave goodbye. This will be where the video on YouTube ends, even though stream will not end.
Bye.
Bye bye.